Hey, what's up everyone and welcome to today's video. This episode will guide you through the issues of the New Mutants published by Marvel Comics in 1983. Issue number 1. The New Mutants are getting accustomed to their new surroundings. Sean's hair is being washed by Stevie Hunter, as the other young mutants are watching. Sean is embarrassed by this and asks Stevie if this was really necessary. Stevie tells Sean she couldn't stop them if she had tried. She assures Sean it'll be for the better because her current hairstyle is simply outdated. Rain comments on how her hair never seems to grow and that it will never look pretty. Roberto grabs her hand and kisses it and tells Rain that her hairdo suits her perfectly, and that the color of her hair is just as fiery as her spirit. Rain's fundamentalist and religious upbringing formed her into a prude girl, and being flirted with like this causes her to wonder if Roberto fancies her. Stevie notices this and keeps an eye on Roberto's flirtations. Danielle jokes around and asks Stevie to please perform her beauty magics on her, so that Roberto would look at her the same way. Stevie tells Danny to knock it off and for Sean to hold still. Accidentally, Danielle sings with Sean and pulls out a memory of her mind, Sean's personal memories of what had happened to her. Her mom and dad, her brother and sister, as well as all the horrors she had to go through. These memories are all projected in 3D, as real as life. Sean attacks Danielle, being ashamed and feeling betrayed by what was just displayed. She tries to choke out Danielle and Stevie tries to stop this, but Sean uses her mutant powers to control and stop Stevie. Roberto then slaps Sean in the face, and Sean's control over Stevie stops. Danny apologizes and tells Sean she wishes this hadn't happened. But Sean asks Danny in return what she will say the next time this happens again, after she's laid bare their very souls. She tells Danny she should possess her and rip out her own beating heart from her own body to make her suffer. Stevie tells Danielle to take a walk, so both of them can calm down a bit. Danielle is hesitant to leave, but Stevie tells her it'll be alright. Just take some distance. Danny leaves and Roberto follows her to look after her, but Sam stops Roberto, explaining to him that crowding her right now is not the best thing to do. Roberto tells Sam that he's not just worried about Danielle, but Sean issuing threats along with the power she has is a scary but real danger. A bad beginning for a school. We follow Danny as she's lost in guilty thoughts, and she wonders what good it has done her to come to Xavier for help. She wanders around in the mansion and ends up in the wing where she's never been before, where the rooms of the X-Men are. Now empty rooms filled with the stuff of people no longer around. She sees a picture of Illyana, whom she met, but she doesn't recognize Colossus or Kitty, and she wonders if Illyana is also a mutant, just like them. She wonders why Xavier never talks about the X-Men and how something bad must have happened to them. She wonders if her and the other kids are supposed to take their place, but she also thinks that she most likely will not be around for that, since her powers are ruining any chance of friendship and happiness, just like they did back home. She stumbles upon an attic and hopes for it to be a place where she can hide for a bit. But as she climbs up the stairs, she's amazed by the amount of plants up there. She notices the plants haven't been watered for a while now and she takes up the job, realizing it will take her a while since the attic is so big. After a while, she and the other students get hailed telepathically by Xavier. They should all report to the danger room. It's time for the first training session. Next we see Moira and Illyana, arriving at the Israeli ambassador's residence in London. Moira has been summoned and she has no idea why. She's welcomed by Gabrielle Haller, and after dinner they will have a talk about her son. Gabrielle is familiar with Moira's work in the field of mutant genetics. Her son is about Illyana's age and has autism, she says. Moira says that she's not a psychiatrist, so this is outside her field. Gabrielle tells Moira that her son's autism is merely a symptom of something far more serious. She suspects her son to be a mutant, mostly psionic in nature, telepathy and possibly telekinesis. She tried every means but to no avail. Moira is her last resort. Moira is trying to make clear that most of her work is theoretical and that she's better off contacting Professor Xavier, but Gabrielle declines. She wants to keep Xavier out of this. As Ileana chokes on the smoke from Gabrielle's cigarette, Maura asks why Gabrielle is so persistent on keeping Charles out of this, since he is more skilled with kids and these kind of mutant abilities. Gabrielle responds by saying that she has her reasons, and after Maura tells her she has the right to know, Gabrielle agrees and tells her that Xavier is the boy's father. The kids, Stevie and the professor have gathered in the danger room. Charles welcomes them there and explains what they can expect from this room. The kids aren't really paying attention, as Sam compliments both Stevie on her work and Sean on her hairdo. Xavier takes out some time to point out that even though he understands the kids' curiosity, he would like for them to respect the privacy of the other residents in the other wing of the mansion. He addresses them all, but obviously Danielle knows he's talking about her. Roberto asks Charles if they're supposed to become the new X-Men. Charles reacts snappy and tells Roberto no. He apologizes for lashing out and tells the kids that yes, this will be a school for gifted youngsters, whose students are mutants, but no, there will not be X-Men ever again. Not another team of mutant superheroes. That chapter is closed now. Roberto says he was only asking, and it was something they had all wondered about. Xavier tells him that the subject is closed. He then continues with his explanation of the danger room. He talks about the safety rules and shows the different variations of the room. He shows the gymnasium mode and tells them that Stevie will help them in honing their bodies to a level of that of champion athletes. Physical stamina for their abilities. Charles then shows the room's ability to project anything it's programmed to show. In this case, a monster that starts attacking. Sam tells the girls to take the professor and Stevie out of the control booth, while Roberto and him will try and hold back the monster. And suddenly the threat is gone. Charles then explains more about the room, how he can adjust it to the person inside the room, and how he can use holographic projections, yet also physical objects to cause real physical pain. He assures the kids that they won't be getting the programming the X-Men had been training with for quite some time. He tells them that their individual exercise has been programmed and their task is quite simple. Enter the room, cross it, and exit it on the other side of the room. Who wants to go first? Cannonball goes first. Thinking this will be a piece of cake, he triggers his mutant ability and starts flying towards the exit. Luckily he has a near invulnerable force field around him when he flies, because he smashes face first into one of the obstacles that pops up. He realizes that if he can't be more maneuverable, his powers will only get him so far. He then gets sucked into a tube and gets dropped to where he started. He failed to succeed. Next up is Wolfsbane, who takes a more careful approach, scanning the room for unexpected surprises. A panel in the floor drops down and she almost falls. She transforms into her transitional form and leaps towards the ledge. She's successful in grabbing it, but the ledge flips her in the opposite direction of where she wanted to go. Unsuccessful as well. When Sunspot enters, he wonders if Charles is using his powers to know what the others were planning on doing. He gets caught by a robot, appearing from behind a wall. He charges up his mutant power, kinetic energy transformed from direct sunlight energy, and he hits the robot. He thinks he can deal with the robot with a single punch, not thinking about the possibility that his fist won't impact in the way he was expecting. He gets stuck with his hands in the robot's body and struggles to try and get free. His energy resources get depleted as he struggles. He changes back to his normal form and still remains stuck. The others watching him from the control booth can't help but laugh as they see him fail as well. Apart from Dani. She's becoming scared for some reason. Karma is entering the simulation of a city wasteland. She thinks back to when she met Spider-Man in the Fantastic Four and fought with the twin brother. Her task in the room is to deal with the others trying to ambush her, as per Professor Xavier's orders. Sam approaches her and she immediately possesses him, hurling him at Roberto. She then gets jumped by Rain and has to yield. Next up is Dani's turn. Danielle has taken up the codename of Psyche. When it's her turn to step into the danger room, she's trembling with fear. Somehow she's scared of dying inside the room, regardless of the others having come out of the test unscathed. When asked by Xavier if there's something wrong, she tells him she's fine. She wonders if he can sense she's lying to him, and if he reads her mind and thinks she's a coward. She once again asks herself what she's doing here, feeling she doesn't belong here. She wonders what happens when she loses control over her powers again, and accidentally starts using her powers on the others. As she reaches for the door handle, she hesitates. What if Sean still holds a grudge for what happened this morning? She threatened to kill her. What if she uses this as her chance to get to do so? She yells out no and starts running away, as if she's being chased by all the devils in hell. We find her again sitting at the shore of the lake on Xavier's estate. Rain has come to find her and asks her how she's doing. Danielle asks her if the others sent her, and Rain tells her she came on her own. It's not that the others don't care about Dani, but they don't know what happened to her. But Rain could tell from Dani's scent that there was something wrong with her. Rain asks Dani if she's miserable because of her displeasure with her mutant powers. Dani in return asks her if Rain could tell that from her scent. Rain tells Dani that every impulse she's getting as a wolf is so nice to her that she sometimes feels like staying a wolf and not returning to her human form anymore. Dani tells Rain that she would miss her. Rain says that she would never leave her friends like that, especially since she never had any friends in Scotland to begin with. Dani tells Rain that they have that in common. Though Dani did have friends, with her mutant ability manifesting, she scared most of the friends away. She had become an outcast almost overnight. The only ones that stood by her were her parents and grandfather, and accidentally she had once pulled her dad's greatest fear out of his mind. She didn't mean to, but had no control over it. It was the image of a bear standing over the bloody remains of a dead Palomino pony, while fighting off a golden eagle. The bear also killed the eagle. Her mother and father were of the horse and eagle clans respectively. Danielle had shown them their deaths. At that time, Danielle did not understand, and their parents made light of what they had seen. A week later, her mom and dad went on a road trip, taking her dad's best gun and bow, and they left Dani in care of her grandfather Black Eagle. She never saw them again after that. Then a couple of weeks ago, she pretty much did the same to her grandfather, showing him his death. She tells Rain that she had hoped for things to change when Xavier invited her to join them, and when she met the other kids. To finally get the chance of a somewhat normal life. Until this morning, when she pulled the image from Sean's mind. She's struggling with what happened this morning and with her being scared and running away like a coward. Rain tries to tell her to not be so hard on herself, and tells her that they're all having trouble with controlling their powers. That's the whole reason why they're here to begin with. She tells Dani that Sean knows it was an accident, and that she reacted so violently only because it caught her off guard, and that if Sean had been here right now, she would tell her the same. A car horn sounds in the distance, and it's Stevie and the other kids. Stevie doesn't like the fact that Charles didn't seem to care that much about Danielle rushing off, and didn't want to search for her telepathically. She wonders if she's out of line by doubting Charles' motivations. Rain jumps inside the car as a wolf, much to the chagrin of the other kids, transforms into a human form and tells them she's found Dani. They ask her if she's alright, and if she will come along with them into town. Rain responds by saying that she just wants to be by herself for a little bit and won't be coming along, even though she does appreciate the invitation. Stevie tells the kids that Dani is old enough to make a decision like that, and that Xavier will call them all back if anything happens. Or so she hopes. They drive off as they're being spied on by agents in another car. The agents are reporting in about who are in the car to Wide Awake, and ask for further instructions. The person they're contacting on the other side appears to be Henry Peter Gyrick, senior member of the National Security Council. He tells the agents that they should maintain discreet surveillance, and that they will be joined by the other units when they end up in Salem Center. They are to do absolutely nothing as to not alarm the kids in the car. If that policy changes, they will be notified. Back in the mansion, Danielle enters the danger room dressed in her team's uniform. All by herself, against the house rules the professor had told them all about in the afternoon. She had been watching Xavier controlling the panels and figures she knows how to operate the device. She's trembling with fear. She pushes herself to try her absolute best and face her fears, without having to be ashamed, with no spectators. All alone she can hold her head up high, as a Cheyenne should. She steps inside and robots appear. Her mutant skills will have no effect on them. She uses the experience she gained from roaming the hills in Colorado with the animals. Skills that help her in fighting off the adversaries and help her in not getting snared. She's able to reach the exit. The only one of the team that was able to. As she's ecstatic about passing the test, she gets zapped and gets knocked out. We see someone in the control room, as Dani slowly regains awareness. As Dani is in pain while lying on the floor of the danger room, that person apparently knows how to control the panel as well and programs the primordial sequence that we had seen before. the one with the predatory monster, which is making its way towards Danielle. It's hungry, and Danielle realizes this is not a test nor an illusion. This is deadly reality. Issue number 2. Danny is running for her life. She got ambushed after having completed her test in the danger room and is now stuck in a dangerously lethal simulation. Regardless of her having the power to summon a person's darkest fears and to project them into intangible three-dimensional images, those extraordinary powers will not save her from the threat she is currently facing. As she's trying to get away from the creature that's chasing her, she stumbles and falls into a pool. She gets up and keeps running until she reaches a rock formation and climbs on top of it. She's very tired and lies down to rest a bit. When she gets up, she takes a look at the surroundings and is amazed by the view. She is aware of her still being in the danger room, but the illusion it has created of her being in the wilderness is near perfect. She thinks back to earlier in the afternoon about what the professor had said about this specific training sequence. She wonders how she's gotten stuck in it and figures that someone is out to kill her. She keeps climbing up the rocky wall and figures it must mark the walls of the danger room, and if she follows it, she should be able to reach the outside. When she arrives at the plateau, she is confronted by another creature, which starts talking to her. It says that she will not find her salvation, and that the creature would prefer for Danny to carry his offspring, but that she's too dangerous because Danielle has sensed his presence and could bring about the creature's destruction, and therefore she must die. She slips, falls down, with her fall being slowed by the trees and plants some, and ends up on her back on the ground. She thinks about her parents being slain many years ago as she does, and she believes that she will join them soon. She just hopes they'll be happy to see her. Danielle's fellow students are coming out of the cinema, along with their teacher Stevie Hunter. Rain's a bit emotional from the movie they went to. This being her first time in a cinema, she thought E.T. was real. It seemed like magic to her. They're getting themselves some ice cream while Stevie calls home to see if everything's going alright. They get approached by other kids about their age and one of them gets impolite real quick. Roberto immediately gets defensive, having been on the short end of the stick of bullies before. Rain gets asked by a girl what her name is and if she's punk or new wave, because of her hairdo. She responds she's Scots, not being familiar with any of those terms. The less friendly guy asks if that goes for the rest of them as well, and Roberto tells him that they are international terrorists. What the kids don't know is that the mall is being held under surveillance by Project Wide Awake, and them even more so. There's a whole division specifically focused on the potential global threat of mutants, headed by Gyrick. He's speaking to Sebastian Shaw, the Black King of the Hellfire Club. They're talking about the potential mutants have in tipping the scales of political and militaristic powers of nations worldwide. Mutants are popping up everywhere. Gyrick is devoted to unravel the mutant mysteries involved, backed by the United States government. Unbeknownst to Gyrick, Sebastian Shaw is a mutant himself, and he recognizes Roberto da Costa on screen, because his father, Emmanuel da Costa, is a member of the Hellfire Club as well. Shaw of course knows about the run-in the kids had with his former associate Donald Pierce, and how fairly easily they defeated him, not even fully control of their mutant abilities. Shaw and Gyrick make their way to a different segment of Project Wide Awake, and have a discussion on whether Gyrick will use the mechanical giant Shaw's factory has been manufacturing. Shaw is trying to goad Gyrick into using his weaponry, because he has plans for himself. Where Gyrick simply wants to capture the kids to contain them and examine them, Shaw wants to make the kids paranoid and suspicious of everyone, except their own kind. So that once Xavier is dealt with, the Hellfire Club will offer them sanctuary, which they will then gladly accept. In the meantime, Stevie is becoming worried. She tried to contact the school but no one's picking up, which is odd because Xavier and Danielle were both supposed to stay at home this afternoon and they didn't activate the voicemail either. As she tries to rationalize her thoughts, her mouth is being covered and she's being dragged into a storage room, with the door closed and locked behind her. The assailant tells her to stop struggling and listen closely. He's a friend and he will let her go if she promises not to scream. He tells her time is of the essence and that the kids are in danger. He asks for her to trust him, and she nods. It appears to be Michael Rossi, Colonel of the Air Force Intelligence. Stevie recognizes the name with him being a former colleague and lover of Carol Danvers. He says that was a long time ago, in a different world. Stevie also recalls how he's supposed to be dead, and Michael tells her that was a ruse, allowing him to have an advantage being able to remain undercover. He tells her she's in need of his help. While Michael Rossi starts to explain what he means by that, the kids are being invited to a school dance while there are policemen approaching them. These men identify as federal agents, and they ask the kids to come along with them. Sean notices that it's not really a request, but more of a command. She asks them if there's something wrong and if they're under arrest. One of the agents tells her that it's just a routine procedure. Sean is wary of corruption amongst authorities in her homeland, and hopes that what Stevie told her about it being different here is true. Regardless of Roberto wanting to wait until Stevie has rejoined them, they decide to follow along and be escorted by the agents. While they're being escorted, Sean wonders if she made the right call. Being the eldest, the rest of the kids follow Sean's lead, albeit somewhat reluctantly. As they arrive at the parking lot, they're being told to freeze, while at gunpoint. It's Colonel Rossi, accompanied by Stevie. He tells the kids that he will keep the agents occupied and that they should run away, while shooting one of the agents with some form of stun gun. Sam ignites his mutant power and slams one of the agent's car and disables the driver. Another agent tries to leave in his car and heads for the nearest exit, but Roberto smashes right through the car's engine. Sean backs him up by possessing another agent who is about to shoot Roberto from behind. Rain disposes of the team leader as she changes into a wolf form and the agent freezes in his tracks by the side of her fangs. Sam becomes slightly worried by them having attacked government agents, but Rossi assures them that so is he and that these guys are operating outside of the law. Rossi suggests that they have a good long talk, but not here. He suggests to go to the Xavier School and do it there. At that moment, the roof of the parking lot gets smashed in by a mutant hunting sentinel. The sentinel assesses the situation and regards the armed human as the biggest current threat. Rossi gets gassed right after he tells the kids to run away because he figures the sentinel will not be here by himself. Sam blasts the sentinel upwards, through the roof. As he does, he sees two more sentinels outside, waiting for them. With the sentinels not having any data in the memory banks regarding Cannibal, they analyze the mutant. Roberto wants to go and help Sam, and he tells the girls to bring Rossi into safety and try and get into contact with Xavier. Roberto is being trapped in between two of the sentinels' hands and starts to feel weak. Being inside, hidden from direct sunlight, he doesn't have any power stored. So in a ditch effort, he smashes through the walls to go outside, having totally forgotten that he was 3 stories high. The girls who are carrying Rossi see Roberto falling from high up, and Rain feels she is about to lose a friend. Something she cannot bear, especially not losing Roberto. The sentinel hunts Roberto and calls him by name, while analyzing his power set. Roberto feels the power coming back to his body, even though it's not yet at its peak, as he notices the robot knowing his name. He wonders if his father can use his power and wealth to deal with these illegal activities of the government if Xavier can't. The sentinel has calculated that Roberto does not possess enough power to damage it, and concludes minimal defense is required. Roberto begs to differ and grabs the sentinel by its foot and lifts it up. The sentinel falls backward right through the walls of the crowded mall. Roberto, regretting the mistake he made, follows the robot inside and dismantles its head from its body, making sure it doesn't get a second chance at attacking. Outside, Sam keeps attacking the sentinel he moved away from the mall. He's aware of him not really being able to damage it a lot, even though he did tear up a part of his torso. The sentinel sticks to its prime operational objective and disables Sam and his mutant powers by encapsulating him in an icy substance. It then leaves with Sam in captivity, while the other unit can capture the girls. For Roberto though, they will need more units. This one cannot stay, its condition is deteriorating. Rain and Sean see the unit holding Sam, and Sean tries to establish a connection with Sam's mind, trying to possess him. But Sam being frozen in makes Sean feel what he feels. It's hard on her and she runs the risk of her body having the same sensations as Sam's does. But she keeps pushing and is able to establish a connection and reignite Sam's power. With the sentinel being damaged and the sudden acceleration, it's not able to loosen its grip on Sam. Sam's flying far away and the sentinel can't do a thing but follow. At that moment, the other sentinel fires a beam at Sean and Rain. It blasts right through the overpass the girls are standing in, right between them, separating the two. With Sean using her full concentration on Sam, she's not able to get her own body into safety. Rain sees this and wants to save her, but gets told by Rossi to get the head agent. He can call off these robots. Rossi will take care of Sean until she does. Rain transforms into a wolf form, jumps the gap and sprints, right past Sean, in search of the agent. Roberta joins Stevie and Rossi and asks if they saw what he did to the Sentinel. Stevie responds with saying that they were too busy to witness it, but asks Roberta to be so kind and take care of the other two as well. Stevie ponders about her place in all of this. She's a teacher, a dancer, not a field leader. Not supposed to be making life or death decisions like this. The Sentinel spots Sean and the stage she's in, but also notices Rossi and Roberto and considers them the currently more important task at hand, with them being a critical level threat. Rossi tells Roberto that the Sentinels have her learning capacity and they will not fall for the same trick twice. At that moment, Sam's ice encapsulation has almost fully dissolved, thanks to Sean's possession and usage of Sam's mutant power to blast through the air. As Sam starts to wake up and provide more mental resistance, Sean releases her control, allowing Sam to regain full control over his body. Sam has no idea how he got up here, removed so far from the mall, nor why he can't seem to break free from the Sentinel's grip, but he figures he should use that to everyone's advantage. He starts flying full power towards the shopping mall, straight into the other Sentinel, figuring he'll be fine due to his invulnerable blast field that surrounds him when he's flying. Both of the Sentinels end up getting wrecked. After several minutes, the local police arrives, finding and arresting the agent, along with the head agent, who just keeps confessing about his role and who or what was behind the assault. Sean had possessed his agent and Rossi tells her it's fine to let him go now. The agent is confused about why he's being handcuffed and asks what's going on and that the agent should release him because he's a federal agent. The police captain tells his colleagues to take them away to the bureau. Sean feels bad about using her powers in this way, much the same that her twin brother used to. But Colonel Rossi assures her that this is the best out of two bad things to choose from, because these guys aren't done with hunting mutants, not by a long shot. When the kids arrive back at the mansion, they see Danny lying on the floor of the danger room, unconscious. She wakes up screaming and scared. They wonder what had happened to her and if she and the professor had gotten attacked by the Sentinels as well. Danielle is happy to see Stevie and hugs her. Danielle tells him about what she had experienced and gets told that she should respect the rules as laid out to Xavier to them before. There's reasons for that. Stevie asks Danielle if she could have made a mistake and triggered the program herself, by accident. Danielle says she didn't, and even if she did, she was first attacked outside of the danger room. Stevie figures by Danielle's descriptions of the monsters she encountered that it's the same type of creature that kidnapped the X-Men some time ago. But she also thought that there weren't any of them left here on Earth. And what's even more curious, only 3 people are authorized to cancel the safety locks of the computer. Charles, Moira and her. Moira's in Scotland, she herself wasn't around, so that leaves Charles. In Charles' study, we see Xavier having fallen asleep at his desk, nowhere near aware of an image forming over him, an astral image of the Brood Queen. Nor is he aware of its embryo growing inside of him, almost ready to start a metamorphosis from human organism into a brood. Issue number 3. It's raining and thundering, waking Danielle up from her sleep. She's looking outside through the window and thinks about how fierce the storm is and how she's never experienced a storm like this, not even back home in Colorado. Suddenly she sees a face in the reflection of the window, the same monster she saw on the plateau in the danger room sequence before. She grabs her knife and approaches the window, but there's nothing there. She's starting to question the stability of her mind and considering that maybe her own mental powers are now turning on herself. All of a sudden, a different monster smashes through the window, mocking Danielle with the thoughts she had. However, this monster is not a projection. It's able to physically grab her. She stabs the creature and this allows her to get herself free from its hold. She shouts out to the others in the house, thinking together they can defeat the monster with their combined powers. She makes her way down the hallway. being scared as she makes her way to her friends' rooms, but she finds them all dead. All of them perished in gruesome ways, one by one. The monster has gotten up close to her, behind her, and grabs her, crushing her while it taunts her. She pulls its hair and pulls off a mask. Underneath it, it's a bear, the same bear that had murdered her parents earlier. She wakes up again from another nightmare, screaming. Roberta and Sam heard this and they enter her room. She's surprised at seeing them alive and they ask her what's wrong. She tells them she has no idea and thinks that she's losing her mind. Soon the professor and Rain join them in Danielle's room. Xavier examines her and can't seem to find anything wrong with her physically. Danny asks him what's going on with her mind then. Xavier tells her to take a good look around her and see that everyone's doing alright. He tells her to go back to sleep, get some rest, and they'll talk in the morning. While she's alone, laying in her bed again, her mind starts racing again. She thinks Xavier doesn't believe her and it's her own fault for not following the rules concerning the danger room. But she's sure something was out there, trying to kill her, so she grabs her knife again to keep herself safe. But there's blood on it. It must be from the bear creature when she stabbed it, she figures. But that would mean it wasn't a dream, it truly exists. She gets out of bed and runs down the stairs, calling out for the professor and wanting to warn the others. She figures that they are all in danger as long as she's inside the house with them. She wonders what makes her so special. As Danielle walks up to Xavier's study, she can hear him on the phone with Moira McTaggart. She can hear him because he's raising his voice. She keeps listening. Xavier tells Moira that he's concerned with Danielle's recent behavior and that she's displaying psychopathic symptoms like paranoia and schizophrenia, and that it might all just be beyond his abilities to help with. Hearing this crushes Danielle's spirit to the point where she starts to wonder if she's inherently evil and whether she should want to or even be allowed to live. On the other end of the phone call in Scotland, Moira is getting angry with Charles, since Danielle has not displayed any form of mental illness when she examined her. She then asks him if he has even done a direct mind scan to confirm his own diagnosis. But he hasn't. She slams down the phone, telling him to bother her once he has. Sean Cassidy, also known as Banshee, and her lover, asks her what's wrong. Moira tells him he's not acting like himself, and Sean tells her he thinks she was a bit rough on him. Moira agrees that maybe she was. Sean then asks if it's because of the boy, the son Charles has, and he's not even aware of. A son Moira and Xavier could have had and dreamt of, and this reminds Moira of her own son, also a mutant, who had turned insane and evil and had to be destroyed by Moira and the X-Men earlier. Moira is overcome by sadness, realizing she must now be the one to try and save Charles' son, or she was not able to save her own. Sean tries to lift up her spirit by telling her they could try and have their own child, born out of love, instead of from violence and hatred like hers was. But Moira is too scared to even think about conceiving another child. Sean takes a walk outside and curses Moira's late former husband Joe McTaggart for what he has done to her. Walking around, he sees Illyana standing on a cliff and he can hear her, thinking at first that she's singing, but it sounds more like she's chanting some kind of prayer. He wonders what she's doing. She's honoring her best friend's birthday, Kat's birthday. It's a song that the elder Aurora had taught her while she was in limbo. Sean apologizes for disturbing her and she says it's fine. He recalls it's the X-Men Kitty Pryde's birthday and wonders if it's her Illyana is talking about. Sean tells Illyana that she shouldn't fret and that even though the X-Men have been kidnapped by aliens, they fought through worse. Illyana thinks to herself that unbeknownst to Sean, she was honoring the X-Men that have already died in limbo, not the ones that are currently abducted and possibly killed in space. She's honoring the ones that had died at the hands of the Demon Lord Belasco, but also the ones that died at her own hands. The next morning, back in New York, Danielle's taking a dive in the swimming pool, like she's been doing every day. Normally she's alone at this time of day, but not today. Sean joins her this morning. She asks Danny how she's able to do this, since the water must be freezing. Danielle tells her that she actually likes this, because where she came from there would now be snow on the ground at this time of year. To her it feels like summer, but not to Sean. Danielle tells her you eventually get used to it and that the cold helps her get a clear mind. That she's had a lot to think about lately and the professor thinks she's gone crazy. Sean asks her if she has, and Danny responds by saying she's scared. She tells Sean she feels like she's been hunted from the day she got here. That something or someone was trying to drive her away from the school. make her quit the team, and that things have now gotten more serious. She feels as if her life is on the line and that somehow the professor is involved. Later in the danger room, Sam is being tested. A training sequence has been enabled to help him get better control over his flying skills. He slams into a cushion-like construct, which is able to measure the impact. Professor Xavier tells him the readings are off the scale. Next up, there's a coordination exercise. Xavier tells Sam to take it easy. Accuracy is more important than speed. Sam tries, but after successfully having gone through the first one, slams into the second ring. Xavier figures he needs to space out the rings more for the next time they practice this. He checks up on Sam, but Sam is alright, apart from his busted pride. After the exercise, Sam is taking a shower and plans on shaving, thinking about how working in the mines was a piece of cake compared to these exercises. And he suddenly blacks out. Apparently, he wrote something on the mirror during his blackout, and he doesn't remember doing this at all. Meet us in the boathouse, it says. He immediately realizes there's only one person able to perform such a thing, and he's not happy about being the subject. He plans on finding out why this has happened to him and what games are being played with him. He makes his way to the boathouse and immediately confronts Sean. Roberto tells him to join the club because Rain and him had gotten the same treatment as well. Danny tells them it's not Sean's fault. Danny asks Sean to possess them all to get them all together here as quickly and quietly as possible. Rain asks why, and Danielle tells him. She tells him everything. The phone call, the bear, the blood and the knife and it all being real. But Sam is skeptical and tells Danny that the professor is a doctor and probably knows what he's talking about. And if he wanted to get rid of her, he could have just expelled her from the school. As he starts making his way out of the boathouse, he's shocked at what he sees outside. Goes back inside and slams the door. Sean asks Sam what's wrong and what he saw outside, but he tells her she doesn't want to know. They all take a look outside and the landscape has totally changed. And Roberto notices the air smells awful. They ask themselves what to do with the current situation and with the professor still being alone in the house. They figure that with the landscape outside being changed, they are not even sure that they're still on Earth, and if they are, they might get lost on the surface. They find an underground passage inside the boathouse and enter it, even though it's dark in there and Rain is scared. Danielle tells the others that she's been exploring the underground passageways below the mansion and opens one of the doors, allowing them access to the network. Roberto asks if these tunnels weren't off limits to them, and Danny confirms this, but that they have to try and get to the professor. She makes sure that the tunnels look the same as before, as Sam is wondering if they haven't changed as well as the surface area above the ground, but Danny says they look the same. She gets immediately grabbed by tentacles, however, and Danielle recognizes the same monster that she came across inside the danger room when she was all alone and ambushed in there. Sam can't believe his eyes, as the creature tells the kids they can stay alive if they leave right now. Sean does not want to comply, and she tries to possess the creature, but its mind is so alien and evil, nothing she's ever come across, and it's more than she can bear and breaks mental contact. As Danielle's struggling to break free, she's trying to use her own powers on the creature, but can't make contact with it, nor summon images from its mind. It mocks Danny for being helpless, but then gets attacked by Rain in her wolf form, overcoming her fear and biting the creature in one of its tentacles. Sam starts blasting his way through the tunnel and aims himself straight at the monster, a head-on collision with the creature being off guard from Rain's attack. When the smoke clears in the tunnel from Sam's blast, the team finds the monster has disappeared, but there's a hole in the side of the tunnel. The structure of the wall has changed and Roberto says it seems to be organic looking and wonders if they're inside of a living being. Rain says that the rest of the tunnel still looks normal, and asks if they can simply leave the place. Roberto tells her that they might be able to escape from the creature, but how will they forgive themselves, knowing that they've deserted the professor? Rain asks Roberto what will happen if they themselves change. He tells her he's not trying to think about that, and tells her to hold his hand as they go deeper inside. As they progress, they notice the changes in the tunnel being more and more completed as they get closer to the mansion, and figure that must be the source. They talk about all of it being an illusion, but Rain knows for sure that what she bit was no illusion. Sean wonders if they're only facing a single opponent and that it might not be as powerful as it seems. Suddenly Sunspot is being grabbed by a tentacle, and pulled on by even more tentacles. Rain is about to try and save him, but Roberto uses his stored solar energies and frees himself in no time. It takes only a couple of seconds, but that's just enough for the monster to grab Danielle again. It flies away and the others are confronted by other creatures, as Danny is trying to break free and help her friends, but notices her mind is being on fire. She screams, passes out, and when she wakes up, she's still sore. She notices how she's been wrapped up, and the sentences in her mind get finished by the creature standing in front of her, like it's reading her mind. She asks why it hasn't killed her yet, and the monster tells her it has a better idea. It will show her what the idea is. It shows her an image of all her friends transforming into members of the monster's own race. After each and every one of them has been implanted with the royal egg, they will all become part of the Brood Collective, and together they will conquer the world, enslave the human race, and take their rightful place in the universe. Danielle is then experiencing a headache and notices twinges in her mind, resembling what she experiences when she uses her power. The Brood Queen tells her she's been doing that a lot today. Danny says she hasn't, but realizes the Brood has been making her somehow. She notices another presence in her mind, no longer hiding, but out in the open as she tries to fight it off, and wonders how long she's been used as a puppet for. It doesn't make sense to her how everything they face is now physically real. Her powers do not allow her to do that, only make projections of mental images. The Brood Queen, however, tells her it has been augmenting her powers through the usage of its own powers, unlocking a potential already there. Danielle's teammates smash through the walls and Cannonball and Sunspot attack the Brood Queen immediately. Danielle tells Sean to not ask any questions, but to immediately possess her, so that Danny's own abused powers will not hamper Sam and Roberto in their fight with the Brood. Sean does so, but gets powerfully overruled in Danny's mind by the Brood Queen, and the plan backfires, allowing the Brood Queen to mentally take control over Sean's body instead. She grabs Sunspot, but he elbows her in the stomach immediately, telling her he is sorry about doing so, and that he would much rather be doing that, and worse, to the demon possessing her. Roberto asks Sam where the Brood went, but Sam doesn't know. He slammed it into the wall as hard as he could, but it vanished, just like it did in the tunnels earlier. It suddenly appears out of nowhere and grabs Rain, slamming her on the floor. It threatens Sam to not approach it, or it will eat Sam's living heart. Danielle then realizes that her power and the Brood Queen's control over her is giving the Brood an advantage with being able to manipulate reality around them. She must be taken out of the equation. She yells out to Sam to come at her and knock her out cold. He does so, and as soon as Danielle is knocked out cold, everything reverts back to normal. Sam is surprised that this actually worked, and asks if all this was Danielle's fault. If her being crazy is the reason that all this had happened to them. Sean tells him that that is not the case, because when she tried to possess her, she could feel a truly alien, inhuman and evil presence within her. Danielle must be taken to the infirmary immediately, because even though Sam tried to pull a sponge, it must have been a rough impact on Danny. Danielle must be taken to the infirmary immediately, because even though Sam tried to pull a sponge, it must have been a rough impact on Danny. They get called mentally by Xavier to explain themselves, and Roberto figures they're in a lot of trouble for the mess they've just made. Later that evening, Danielle's sitting on the porch and Roberto is coming outside to join her. He asks her how she's doing. Roberto is trying to cheer Danielle up, telling her that the professor was able to confirm her story by mind scanning her, and that he has been looking for a way to hunt the Brood Queen down. He tells her that they've won today's battle, and with Xavier leading them, they will also win the war. Danny isn't entirely comforted by these words, because she feels that the creature is still out there. And with her being the weak link and the entry point, she wonders if it's better for everyone if she would just leave the team. Roberto gets annoyed and tells her that that won't do any good, and that no slimy giant insect will ever drive the New Mutants apart. Danielle thanks him for these words, hugs him, but tells him that she's still afraid. Afraid of everything the Brood Queen seemed to know. Certain aspects and potential of her powers. Things she expected only Xavier to know. She wonders if he's somehow involved and under the control of the alien as well. Roberto tells her that nobody is that good of an actor. He points out a shooting star in the night sky, one that's shining brighter than he's ever seen, and considers it a good omen. Danielle's still skeptical though, since they've only been with their teacher for a short time and basically don't really know what he's like. Roberto tells her that they will cross that bridge when they get there. Sam approaches the two of them and asks them if they want to come inside and join the rest in chilling and watching some TV. Issue number 4. Someone has been scaring Stevie Hunter. Sean is aware of this and tells her to get help from the police, but Stevie tells her she might as well not bother with it because they can't do anything against verbal harassment. Something has to happen first. Sean says that maybe the New Mutants or the X-Men could help, but Stevie tells Sean to stay out of it, that it's her problem and she'll deal with it herself. She tells Sean to go back home to Xavier's and that they'll talk more about it tonight, because right now there's another student of her dance class waiting for her. At the Xavier school, Danny, Sam, Rain and Roberto are enjoying some downtime in the snow. They're playing around with a frisbee and their power some as Sam crashes into a tree, not being able to make the turn in time while trying to intercept the frisbee. They're being held telepathically by the professor. We find out that this way of communicating is still very awkward and even scary to Sam, especially since he ruined one of the trees and he thinks he's in trouble now. Danny has totally different emotions with him popping up in their minds altogether, since a few days ago the brute inside of Xavier was trying to kill her. Her instincts cause her to want to lash out at him and attack him, out of self-preservation, even though she realizes that was not Xavier himself. As they head back into the mansion, they run into Empress Lilendra, who tells them there will be food and drinks waiting on them in the living room once Xavier is done talking to them. All of them are impressed by the presence of an alien royalty in their own way. They enter Xavier's study, but Sean has not yet arrived, and Danny and Sam wonder what this will be about. Danielle would like to know what's going on in Xavier's mind, and thinks it's unfair with him being able to read theirs, but not the other way around. Sean arrives, and Xavier tells them what this meeting is about. He tells them that the decision to reopen the school was influenced by the brood inside of him. The school was an easy means to gather new powerful host bodies for further expanding the brood's plans of world domination. Luckily the X-Men were able to avert this, and having recovered from the attack, Xavier realized that reopening the school was a good idea regardless. They are, all of them, powerful mutants, and for their own welfare, as well as that of society as a whole, it's best for them to get the proper help in gaining control over their powers. He fully understands that some of them do no longer trust him, because of the brute possession and the attempts to kill them, but he assures them that he is no longer under the brute's influence. He tells them he cannot force them to stay at the school any longer, but also tells them that he would like them all to stay. Danielle is surprised at the professor opening up like this, and can sense him being genuine, and she tells him that she speaks for all of them when she says that they'll gladly stick around and give it a fair chance, for better or for worse. Xavier can tell, without invading Sean's private thoughts, that something is bothering her. Sean tells everyone what's been going on with Stevie, how Stevie is being harassed and that she fears Stevie is in danger. Regardless of Stevie's reluctance to ask for help, Sean feels obligated to help her out, since Stevie has risked her life for them in the past. Danny already whispers to Sean that they will help her out, regardless of how the professor will respond. Xavier heard this, and he figures Danny intended for him to hear, as he has been noticing Danny's rebellious streaks lately. He figures he'll be needing to deal with this very soon. He asks the students if they all agree with Danny, and since they do, he tells them to devise a plan of action and to submit it to him for approval. Danny tells him that this is not a game or a danger room exercise, that this is serious because Stevie's life might be at stake. Xavier tells her that he knows this and that something can be learned from every situation, whether it's artificial or real. He tells her it's best to take advantage of the situation and also to not waste time and effort in pointless confrontations. He tells her that he is not the enemy and to stop treating him as such. Lilendra tells Charles that she noticed how Danny was tensed up when the team left Xavier's study and asked him if they had argued. He then tells her that Danny's been confronting him at seemingly every turn and wonders what she's trying to prove. Lilendra tells him that she's just scared of everything that's around her in this new life of hers, and probably of herself and her powers as well. And that she's desperately trying to deal with this by attacking, or defying even, the single strongest authority figure presently available. And that of course is Charles. Xavier tells Lilendra that it sounds as if she speaks from personal experience, and she can only respond by saying that she hasn't always been an empress. She starts massaging his shoulders, as she tells him he feels unusually tense. She asks him how he would deal with Danny, and he tells her that in the past he would have probably psychologically strong-armed her. But times are different now. These kids are different, raised in a more rebellious age than the X-Men had been. There will have to be a bond of loyalty with these kids. A bond made out of respect, not out of fear. They fool around a little bit and share a kiss. Later, at Stevie's apartment, the New Mutants have gathered, and Roberto installs a phone trace on Stevie's telephone. The device will give them the person's phone number and location if he calls again. Hours pass, and even though there are some phone calls being made, it's not the guy that's been threatening her. Until he does call. They trace the call down and they end up at a payphone, not a home. Danny tells Rain to change into a wolf form and to get the guy sent. At first she's being disgusted by the smell lingering around the phone booth, but eventually she's able to pick up the right scent. Rain in wolf form and Danielle share a rapport with one another, like Danny can with every animal, and she lets her know that they're looking for a boy about their age. Stevie is shocked at this, and they follow the trail further. They end up at the school dance they had been invited to a couple of days earlier at the mall. They sneak up to a window to be able to look inside, as Sam tells Rain that sneaking up like this reminds him of hunting back home in Kentucky. He tells her that he misses his mother and his siblings. Rain peers through the window and sees teenagers dancing and having fun, with all kinds of emotions, through the eyes of a wolf. She sees a display of colored patterns of energy, with every body giving off its own distinct heat signature, revealing the person's physical and emotional state. The others are about to enter the school and continue with their plan. A plan Stevie is not so sure she likes a whole lot, but Danny says they might as well try. They recognize some people and try to mingle with the people already there. Rain starts to notice changes in the boy that looks at Stevie. Danny picks this up and they point out Peter Bristow, one of Stevie's dance class students. Stevie approaches him to talk to him, but he runs for the door as he pushes Stevie away. Rain instinctively jumps through the window as her teacher and friend is being pushed aside, not realizing that her wolf form will scare the kids inside. In the panic, some of the kids are trampled, one of whom is Sean, but Roberto makes sure she's alright. They chase Peter, but he's able to get inside of a car and drive off. Rain's trying to keep up with him, but she's unable to. So Sam ignites his powers, catching up to Peter, who is almost about to hit a woman and her child who are crossing the street. Sam is able to intercept and pick them up, as his flight trajectory is going straight towards the building in front of him. With him not being in full control of his maneuverability while blasting, he's worried that he won't be able to avoid the crash. He tries his hardest and is able to pull it off, blasting high up in the air with another problem arising. Namely, how will he be able to put the woman and the kid down on the ground? The professor helps him by guiding him in making short bursts to slow his descent. It's still a pretty rough landing, but everyone ends up safely on the ground. The kid he was carrying is crying, but all Sam can do is cheer with his personal victory. In the meantime, Peter wasn't able to make a certain turn and has crashed his dad's car. He tries to escape by heading into a factory and find his way back to New York from there. Roberto tells Sam to go to the far side of the site, as the rest of the team will try and trap Peter in between them. Stevie's injured knee acts up, as they are in pursuit, so Sean tells Roberto to stay with her, as he's the only one of them able to safely deal with the fire of the car crash. Rain, in wolf form on the hunt, is liking this feeling and secretly wishes she could stay this way forever. A sentiment that's picked up by Danielle, but she keeps it a secret. Danielle tells Sean that they will have to be careful, as Sean is only just able to push Danielle away from a beam falling from the ceiling. Outside, Roberto is trying his best to deal with the car being on fire. He'll have to distribute the solar energies carefully, because in the night he has no chance of charging back up. He throws the car away, but not realizing that the place he threw the car towards is filled with explosives. He contacts Xavier, who in turn tells everyone to go outside in a hurry, because the factory they're in could get totally destroyed by the blast of the explosives. Sean and Danielle have a short discussion on whether or not Peter deserves to perish here, or if they should risk their own lives to try and save him as well. They hear a scream, and it's coming from Rain. Apparently Peter had struck Rain and thinks he's going crazy, because he hit her as a wolf and she has now turned into a girl. Sean possesses Peter and tells Danny to take care of Rain. Stevie and Roberto see an explosion, and inside, the factory is starting to fall apart. Cannonball picks up Rain and blasts an exit through the wall and tells the girls to hurry up. Sean's doing her best, but she can't move as fast as she does when she's not possessing someone, and tells Danielle to take care of herself and that they will be following right behind her. Danny tells her to shut up and that they will go together or not at all. They see Sunspot and he's been holding the exit open for them, but he's about to reach the limits of his powers. Once everyone is outside and cleared from the falling debris, he steps away and lets the building collapse. Later, back at Stevie's apartment, Stevie talks to Peter, asking him why he would ever do what he's done. He tells her that they can't prove anything, but Stevie tells him he's wrong. They have recordings of his calls, which will prove that it was him. Stevie threatens to tell his parents, which scares Peter, and he tells her to leave them out of this. The professor isn't able to breach Peter's mind because of his near-mortal terror. He tells the New Mutants to use their own powers to find out more. Danielle knows that Xavier meant her and for her to use her powers, to pull Peter's greatest dreams and nightmares from his mind. Danny has a moral internal monologue concerning people's privacies, but figures Xavier must be right since he always is and wouldn't be asking this without a good reason. Danny gets in sync and pulls Peter's greatest desire. He screams out as a 3D image appears in front of him and Stevie kissing. Stevie does not understand this. If he has such a crush on his teacher, then why show his affection for her in such a strange way? Danny reaches deeper and Peter's fantasy is replaced by his greatest fear. His daily reality of him getting whipped by his father with a belt. Sean is horrified and Roberto tells Danny to break contact. They've seen enough. But Danny isn't able to. The emotions are too strong for her to break free. Peter rages at Danielle and tells her he's going to kill her. Sam tries to get a hold of him, but Peter escapes and his clothes get torn up. Sean possesses him again and is able to keep Danielle safe. Peter sitting on his knees on the floor with his back for everyone to see, including all the scars and the bruises on the poor guy's back. This abuse has been going on for years, judging from the scars. Stevie tells Sean to release her hold on him, and Stevie tells Peter they've known each other for a while, and that she thought they were friends. Peter, while crying, slaps her hand away and tells her to call the cops, call his parents, do whatever, he doesn't care anymore. Roberto asks him why his parents have done this and if they hate him so much. Peter responds to him by saying they don't hate him, they love him. He's just been a bad boy, he needs to be punished. When Peter had joined the dance class, he fell in love with Stevie. Thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world. She told him she liked him, but no matter what he did, she wouldn't punish him. He then figured that she was lying to him, because if she did love him, she should have been hitting him. Which she didn't do, so he wanted to get even. He then tells her that he's sorry. Within the next hour, Xavier arrives, and aside from informing the proper authorities, he adjusts Peter's memories of the New Mutants. It will be a long while before the boy will be returned to his parents. Rain asks what will happen to Peter now, and Xavier tells her that the physical wounds will heal, but the mental scars caused by the child abuse at the hands of his own parents will take a long time to heal, if they ever will. Xavier tells the kids that this is justification for them being who and what they are, as human beings as well as mutants. That it's not always about fighting villains or evil mutants, but sometimes it's simply about helping people. He tells them he wants a full analysis of the events of the night before tomorrow's class. He wants to know what went well and what went wrong and what could have been done better. He tells them that they still have a lot to learn. Stevie, however, tells them all that they've done good. Really good. Issue number 5. Professor Xavier is in a world of hurt. Somehow, ever since his mind was transferred to a newly cloned body, he experiences the pain of his legs being crushed. A pain which he had been suppressing with his mental powers for years. He can't resist but try to use his physically fine legs, but every time he tries to walk without using his powers, he collapses in unbearable pain. Lilandra heard him scream and checks up on him, as he's lying on the floor. They are both confused at what the cause of this problem is, and they wonder if they had overlooked something. Charles realizes that this mental attack he's experiencing has severed his link with his students. Lilandra tells him not to worry and that they will be fine for a few hours without him watching over them. Charles knows that she is right, but he hates feeling so helpless. Speaking of his students, the New Mutants are currently enjoying a fair and Stevie is there with them. They are enjoying food, ice cream and some of the games, and Roberto and Danielle are going on a trip on an airplane. They see a couple of the bikers, members of a crew known as Team America, who are there to give a show. Roberto has been a fan of them ever since he's seen them race back in Brazil. He's surprised to see them here, however, since the crew supposedly retired months ago. He walks over to them asking for autographs, but one of the guys, nicknamed Wolf, is quite rude to him. Nor is he being friendly to one of the other guys. As Roberto and Rain agree to not liking the guy, Stevie tells him that the show is about to start. All of them are being watched by someone who mentions that it's only half of the team and she had hoped for more. She also says that the mission will proceed as planned and she wants the targets alive. The show starts and the New Mutants are watching in awe as Team America performs all kinds of stunts. For the final part of the show, they will be racing against one another in a 50 laps race. They start revving up their engines and as they start racing, suddenly there's an explosion. As Team America has blown off their motorcycles, a squad of armed goons show up. They are after Team America and they will gun down anyone that intervenes. Stevie is trying to hail Xavier mentally, but there's no response. The crowd starts to panic and Sam is about to do something about the raid. Sean tells him not to because of the danger of getting recognized by the people in the audience, but Sam convinces her to let him do his job. He manages to knock out most of the attackers. Team America is able to gather their bearings and they attack some of the other attackers. Karma possesses one of the attackers and uses his weapon to attack the others. As the one being possessed gets taken down himself, the link between him and Sean is severed, which leaves her dizzy and vulnerable. A missile gets fired and Sean is only barely saved by Stevie, who jumps towards her and pushes her on the ground. Once again, Stevie, simply a dancing class teacher, finds herself smack dab in the middle of a battlefield. Rain and Roberto both use their powers to attack more of the goons, and Team America helps them out. The lady who was observing them earlier is now joined by a warrior-looking figure, and they talk about what their aim was in attacking Team America. They were trying to lure out the Dark Rider, who Team America seems to have some kind of bond with, and not this band of superpowered teens. She orders the warrior, whom she addresses with the name Murata, to take whatever steps necessary to defeat these kids. The first one he approaches are Sean and Stevie, and he introduces himself as the Silver Samurai. He tells them to stand aside so they won't be harmed, but Sean tries to possess him instead. She's still weakened from the severed bond earlier and is not able to possess the resisting Silver Samurai. He whacks her in the neck and Cannonball sees this happening, and he attacks the Silver Samurai instead. But he too gets whacked and smashes into some of the debris lying around. The Team America member Wolf picks up one of the guns lying around and tells the samurai to freeze or he will fire. He then hesitates, remembering an earlier battle in which he killed someone, and the Silver Samurai attacks him instead. Then, suddenly out of nowhere, the Dark Rider shows up. He heads straight for the samurai, who draws his energy sword and takes up a position, but steps aside just in time and slashes the bike's front wheel straight off. The Dark Rider is able to land safely, but the Silver Samurai isn't done yet. He throws shuriken at them and they wreck the engine and the rear wheel, resulting in the Dark Rider crashing. The samurai, surprised at the Dark Rider still being alive, approaches him only to find out that it's not a him at all, but a her. It's actually Danielle Moonstar, one of the New Mutants. He wants to teach his kids a lesson, but he obeys Viper's order and picks up Danielle, which is seen by Sunspot, and he starts attacking the samurai. He jumps at them, but the samurai teleports out of there and Roberto ends up on the ground. Close by, Cannonball is getting up from his crash landing and starts to get annoyed with himself for not having more control over his movements when using his powers. He sees Stevie holding Sean's unconscious body and asks whether she's doing alright. Stevie can't really tell. She tells Sam that she can see Rain and Roberto, but she can't seem to locate Danielle. They wonder and worry about where she is. Somewhere else, at a later time, Psyche has woken up in a strange surrounding and is dark. She has no recollection of what had happened to her up until the moment she did wake up in the strange outfit. The lights turn on and she sees a motorcycle standing in the room. She sees and hears objects rolling towards her, as a female voice tells her that this is a test. She either escapes or she dies, and her only way out is by using the motorcycle. Strangely, though she had just been riding a bike a short while ago, she has no idea how to use one now. She fails the test and the bike gets crushed. She figures that she's as good as dead now, but she gets picked up by the Silver Samurai, who tells her to follow him. She does so, and while they walk up on the staircase, she wonders if the warrior knows she's a mutant, and she figures that she could outrun him, especially if she used her abilities. She also figures that she'd best stay a bit more patient before she makes her move, so she can get a better idea of exactly where she is. Danielle gets presented before Viper, who asks for her name. Viper tells her that she was able to handle a bike on the fairgrounds like an expert, and Danielle cannot believe what she's saying. Nor does she remember her appearance as a Dark Rider, and since she doesn't, she also tells Viper that she has no connection to Team America. Danielle's getting angry because of these suggested questions and doesn't know what had happened herself. This results in Danielle losing control over her mutant powers, and she starts pulling images from Viper's mind. Images of her while running through the ruins of her war-torn European homeland. Viper smacks Danielle and points a gun at her, telling her that she will make her pay for this. Back at Xavier's mansion, the professor is still not able to make a psychic link with Danielle, which must mean that she's either far away or being shielded off, or both. Lilandra asks him if she could be dead, but Charles says that he would have sensed the trauma no matter what. Roberto in the meantime is getting annoyed and restless. The professor, Lilandra and the kids have been joined by Michael Rossi, who has provided Xavier with some computer files regarding the team's encounter in the afternoon. From their descriptions he figured that they had a run-in with Kaneyucho Harada, the Silver Samurai, and the former Madame Hydra, now known as the Viper. He also tells them about the Dark Rider and what's known about him. Xavier says that all these things have no connection to Danielle. Sam then asks why Danny would be pretending to be the Dark Rider, and Xavier has his suspicions. He then activates Cerebro and uses his powers in conjunction with the device. This is being observed by everyone present, and it's an amazing sight for them all. Stevie wonders how anyone can wield powers like this and not get corrupted. After a short while, Xavier has found the solution, and it's an obvious one. In Washington DC, the Viper and the Silver Samurai wake up on Mr. McDonald from his sleep. They are here to make him an offer he cannot refuse. He is to gather the rest of the Team America members to break into a place in Mexico to steal a certain object for Viper, and if he doesn't comply, she will kill Danielle. Viper has already summoned the rest of the team, and she wants to hear their decision at dawn, at which time they will have 24 more hours to complete the task. The other members arrive, and McDonald, also known as Hanjo, tells them what Viper had told him. The three members who were at the fair in New York tell him what had happened there, and Wolf says that he couldn't see if it was actually Danielle that was captured when the samurai picked up the body of the Dark Rider, and he says he doesn't really care much either. He tells Hanjo that he's being played for a fool and that Viper has no hostage. McDonald himself isn't even convinced that the girl Danielle will be let go if they have successfully completed the task. There's a knock on the door, and they turn off the lights and draw their guns as they expect it will be Viper. But it's not, it's Xavier, and he's telling them that there's no need for guns as he's here to help them. He brought the New Mutants, and Wolf recognizes them and tells Xavier to get them out of here. At this point, Roberto gets really annoyed with Wolf, and Xavier tells Roberto to control himself. Wolf forces it on more by telling Roberto to do what Xavier tells him, or that he will take him over his knee. McDonald, as the leader of Team America, tells Wolf to cool it, because he's acting as childish as Roberto is. He tells the rest of Team America who and what Xavier is, and Xavier reveals that he himself and the kids are mutants. And they, the members of Team America, are too apparently. Xavier tells them that Team America is a projecting gestalt, a terminology for the phenomenon that happens when the group is confronted by extreme danger. Every member of Team America has the ability to summon the Dark Rider, which is a projection of their combined attributes. This projection then possesses a host body, such as what happened with Danielle this afternoon. Wolf is being his annoying self again, and this enrages Sunspot to the point where he uses his powers to pick up Wolf and slams and holds him against the wall, telling him their friend may die. Xavier tells them that Danny's current situation is their responsibility, and that because they have no control over their powers, they are a threat to everyone around them. They will have to quickly learn how to control the powers, and that's why Xavier is here to help them with. Xavier leaves them no choice in the matter. There's a discussion taking place about morality, powers and responsibilities, and Wolf and Roberto have another macho standoff. Because of the friction between Roberto and Wolf, Xavier decides for the New Mutants to lay low for the time being, a decision which Sam does not understand because Danny is their teammate. Sean explains why Xavier made the decision he made, and Roberto comes to the conclusion that his childhood hero, Wolf, is not deserving of this admiration at all. Xavier informs the kids of his plan telepathically, which rubs Roberto the wrong way, because they decided to stay at Xavier's school and now Danny's life is at stake. Xavier explains to them that Team America's lack of control over the powers is priority now, and if they're being successful in saving Danielle, but still run into trouble, at least it will have bought them some time to summon the X-Men team, to deal with Viper in the proper manner. Roberto still feels as if their lives mean little to Xavier. Sean understands what Xavier is trying to do, what he thinks is best, and stands up for him. But she also tells her team that they should make their own decisions regarding doing what they feel is best. She says that they will try and save Danielle on their own, with or without Xavier's aid. Xavier admires the guts and willingness to dive headlong into danger to try and rescue their friend and teammate. He has already seen 2 of his students die, and he was hoping to be able to prevent the New Mutants from getting into situations like these. He hopes that if any life will have to be sacrificed, it will be his own. Issue number 6. In San Francisco, the New Mutants have decided to invade the home of the former General Nguyen Coi of the Vietnamese National Police. Sunspot and Cannibal use their mutant powers to crash through the door and ceiling. General Coi poses as a businessman now, but in reality he's the main crime lord in the Bay Area. He is also the uncle of Sean Koi Ma, Karma of the New Mutants. Both Karma and Wolfsbane use their powers to secure the room and capture the general. The team needs information from him regarding the whereabouts of the international criminal Viper. He says he's not dabbling in criminal activities anymore, but Rain starts growling at him because she can tell he's lying. They tell him they have no time for games because their friend is in danger, and the general asks what they will do if he refuses. Sean tells him that would be regrettable, and she possesses him and walks him towards the ledge of the 50 stories high penthouse. With Professor Xavier being busy and unavailable to read his mind, they will have to resort to forcing the information out of him using their own powers. Karma releases her hold on the general and tells him to look below. She tells him that a simple thought, just one step, will make him fall 250 meters down and end his life and rid the world of a piece of human vermin. She orders him to start talking, but he still refuses. He calls her bluff and tells her to rid herself of the one man that betrayed her parents, corrupted her brother and forced her to destroy him. He tells her to take his life if she can, but she cannot. Roberto steps in to do the honors. He has no moral issues with killing a criminal like this man whatsoever. Sean tells Rain and Sam to stop Roberto because the New Mutants do not kill. That's what they have pledged, and if they deviate from that, they are no better than their uncle. The general then corrects her, telling her that he's not an unreasonable man or vindictive at all. He will be happy to assist them, but for a price. He tells Sean he wants her service for a year long in return. This presents a dilemma for Sean: do her uncle's dirty work, using her powers to expand his criminal empire, or reject the offer and abandon their goal to liberate Danielle. She then says that she will accept the deal. In the meantime, in the deserts of New Mexico, the members of Team America are heading, racing even, for the mountains and Are You Ready and Wolf are in the lead. Wolf crash lands, as he's not as used to riding off the road as Reddy is, and Reddy makes fun of him, teaching him a long overdue lesson right as the rest of Team America catch up to them. Professor Xavier pops up in all their minds and is furious. Danielle's life is at stake and there's no time for them to argue amongst themselves. Hancho, their leader, fully agrees with Xavier, and he scolds them for behaving the way they have, and now they're falling behind on schedule with Wolf's bike having broken down. They do not have time for this. Aboard the X-Men's Blackbird, Xavier and Lilander are discussing the fact that Xavier is having to put full focus on Team America with their infighting, and that leaves him with virtually no energy left to check up on the New Mutants. Lilander tells him to take it easy, because he's no use to anyone if he exhausts himself. Xavier was hoping he would be able to switch his attention between the two teams, but that seems to not be doable. Xavier is having a hard time with both teams not having achieved their objective yet. Team America has not gotten the crystal, which Viper forced them to get, nor do the New Mutants have saved Danielle yet. Lilander tells him to be more patient, and that hardships like these are the price that a leader pays. On the shores of Big Sur in California, Danielle is being held captive. she's trying to figure out the proper way of using her abilities to escape from herself. She does not know if there are any guards outside, nor does she know what effect her powers would have on them, or on the person watching the monitor connected to the camera that's been watching her. She's being observed by the Silver Samurai, who is amazed at the untamed spirit Danielle seems to possess. He is being joined by Viper, who asks him about the prisoner. He then tells her that Danielle's dangerous and should be killed. Viper tells him that will happen in due time. She needs some time to figure out how exactly that's going to play out, and she's also curious about the child's powers. Viper is asking the samurai what's been ailing him lately. She notices a difference in his focus and behavior. Recently, his father Lord Shigen Yoshida has been killed, and he would have inherited leadership of the clan Yoshida, but his place has been usurped by Shigen's daughter and his half-sister, Mariko, instead. And now, Mariko has announced her engagement to the Canadian X-Men Wolverine, which infuriates him. Viper tells him that once this business has been taken care of, they will head to Tokyo, Japan, and deal with the family business. They will claim what they think is rightfully his, and if Mariko and Wolverine object, they will suffer the consequences and die. Team America has arrived at the intended location. It's a fortress of unknown origin, and bribes have been keeping it off the radar. And people that wouldn't be bribed have disappeared. The same fate that would happen to the people who tried to penetrate the security zone surrounding it. Wolf and Reddy seem to have gained a certain respect for one another and are actually able to function as teammates. They are tired from their journey, and Xavier forces them to catch some sleep, as Cowboy slides down the slope, informing everyone that Hancho and Wrench have started climbing the walls of the fortress. Apparently the fortress belongs to Advanced Idea Mechanics, also known as AIM. Xavier notices guards approaching and warns Hancho and Wrench. Being warned, they dispose of the guards easily and disguise themselves as AIM members using the guards' uniforms. The guards are female, but with the thickness of the uniforms that should not be noticeable. Xavier has been able to get the layout of the complex and notice the importance of a certain project, nicknamed Matrix, from the minds of the guards, but he has not been able to side scan the researchers so far. Their minds seem to be protected by some kind of side shield. He can tell excitement, yet also fear in their minds. Hancho and Wrench have made their way to the vault, and Wrench tries to pick the electronic lock. Some form of alarm is triggered, and the AIM soldiers start firing at them. Wrench was successful in opening the vault, and they're able to grab the crystal and get out of there. To the surprise of the Team America members who had been waiting outside, suddenly the whole fortress explodes. At the same time, Xavier is being psychically attacked, with the force coming from Black Mesa, the fortress itself. It's an extremely powerful attack, and the only thing Xavier can do is sense that it's coming from a mutant. And because of his own telepathic powers and the rapport he shares with his lover, the attack hits Lilandra as well. Back at Viper's estate in Big Sur, the New Mutants are sneaking around on the premises in the night, taking out the guards. When Sam mentions that this reminds him of their first encounter, Sean tells him to shush. They will have to be careful when they're going any further, and they can't wait any longer for the professor. She tells him that Xavier told her to consult with him first before they took any further action, but he's not responding to her mind calls. But someone else does respond. Someone who knows her name and tells her that she will be his instrument with which she will destroy Xavier. This terrifies Sean and she screams out, alarming the other guards in the building. A searchlight is turned on and aimed at the team, and a squad of soldiers run outside. Cannonball smashes through them, destroying the building, and Sunspot picks up a truck and throws it to inflict more damage. This shuts off the lights, and Sean uses the darkness to sneak around and possess two of the guards. The fight and destruction close by wrecks Danielle's cell, and she uses this opportunity to rid herself of the two guards outside her cell. She uses her power to distract the guards and knocks them out cold, barehandedly. And as she's trying to escape and turn the corner, she finds Rain lying on the floor, unconscious and bleeding. She got slashed on her sides by the Silver Samurai's energy sword. In North Mexico, Team America are on the run from their heist, and apparently Hancho and Wrench have escaped from the explosion of the building unharmed. They all wonder how they were able to do that and think that it might have something to do with the crystal. They don't like the fact that they haven't heard anything from the professor, as they're being shot by AIM hovercrafts, which are in pursuit. Two members are shot off their bikes and lie on the ground as Cowboy tries to distract the AIM soldiers. Wolf doesn't like him doing so because of the danger and fears for his life. He makes a desperate attempt to summon the Black Rider as he recalls Roberto's words and figures it's time for him to act up. He gets possessed by the Black Rider entity and performs stunts which should not be humanly possible. He disposes of the aim hovercrafts and ends up on the backseat of Cowboy's bike. Wolf tells him what it feels like to be possessed by the Black Rider entity, and Cowboy tells him that he will have to put the power to the test because there's more of them coming. At Viper's location, the Silver Samurai is about to slash Danielle, who's trying to protect Rain, but they get rescued by Cannonball, who pushes the samurai away from them and slams him into the rocks outside of the building. Cannonball gets joined by Sunspot in the fight, and he punches the samurai hard. So hard, the samurai is convinced that his armor would not be able to protect him a second time against Roberto's power. As Roberto approaches him, he teleports out, again, vowing to come back for these kids once he's made sure Viper is alright. Viper herself is stuck in a battle of willpower against Karma. Sean is trying to possess her, but Viper is resisting and trying to point her gun at Sean's head to pull the trigger. The samurai teleports in and distracts Viper. This allows Sean to gain the upper hand in the mental struggle. She then uses Viper's body and points her gun at the samurai, but he manages to knock Viper out cold instead, which has an unexpected result for him, namely leaving Sean vulnerable. He now has a chance to kill her effortlessly, but he chooses to teleport the two of them safely away and leave the pleasure for Viper herself some other time. The sun is coming up again, and most of the members of Team America have made it back to the Blackbird plane of Charles Xavier. They have found Xavier and the lander unconscious and are taking care of them. They now understand why they hadn't heard from him for a while. He tells them of the psychic attack he endured, one of a caliber he hasn't ever experienced before. It felt to him like the emergence of a new powerful mutant, the birth of a new threat, and he wishes he knew what AIM had been working on. Hancho tells the professor that they had been successful in taking the crystal, and now Xavier wonders why Viper would want it so badly. He tells Team America to strap in, because he's been out of contact with the students for too long already and wants to get to them quickly. Hancho tells Xavier that they're still missing two of his team members, but Xavier tells him that those two should have arrived by the time the Blackbird is ready for liftoff, as he points at one of the monitors. Wolf is approaching the plane, carrying Cowboy with him. At Viper's base, the new mutant members are fighting each other again, and they are happy to see Danielle is unharmed. Sean makes a joke about Danielle's outfit, and Danny is somewhat embarrassed. Roberto asks about Rain, but she seems to be recovering pretty fast. While Danny had been looking over Rain, Rain had told her about the deal Sean made with her uncle. And Danny tells her that she doesn't like it one bit, and if anyone should be in debt to her uncle, it's her. But Sean tells her it's none of her concern, and that she gave her word. The professor is able to establish contact with the students again, and he tells Sean that he's not happy with her having made a dangerous decision like this. But he also acknowledges that it was unavailable for consultation and that their mission was a success. He tells them that he will be with them within the hour. Sean then sees Xavier's astral projection change before her eyes. Apparently she's the only one seeing this, as she's being contacted by the same unknown entity as before. It's telling her that it has come to claim her body and soul forever. She trembles in fear and falls to her knees, and she starts speaking in Vietnamese. Sam tells Danny to carry Rain, as him and Roberto will be taking Sean along with them outside. On a boat close by, Viper tells the samurai that she doesn't like loose ends and tells him to deal with them. He then pushes on a button, which makes Viper's former base totally explode. Back on the Blackbird, Xavier senses his mind link being severed, with a lot of confusion and terror in the minds of his students right before he got cut off. He tells Lalandra to hurry and get them to California as fast as possible, as he fears something terrible has happened to his students. Issue number 7. Roberto is standing on the shores of Big Sur close to San Francisco. His mutant powers are what saved him and his friends, as the explosion caused several boulders to come at them. His strength allowed him to smash them to pieces. Once they hit the waters below, he also managed to save his friend and teammate Sam, who didn't know how to swim and was struggling to keep his head above the water. Slowly but surely, the other members made their way to safety. All but one. It seems like they had lost Sean in the ambush. It's an anticlimax after they had just saved their teammate Danielle from the clutches of Viper and the Silver Samurai. He meets back up with his teammates who had been looking for him. He needed some time for himself. He's gotten wet and Danielle gives him her jacket before he catches a cold. He asks Sam if they had heard anything from Sean, but the X-Men and Xavier, who had continued the search, have not found anything. Roberto is losing hope in finding Sean since it's been days, and Rain tells him to not say these kinds of things, as she panics and asks Danielle what they will tell Sean's siblings. Roberto asks Sam what kind of heroes they really are if they couldn't find Sean nor capture her killers. They walk towards Professor Xavier and the X-Men. Colossus tells Xavier that they've checked with every local hospital and police station. Kurt sees the kids arriving and teleports to them, to bring them some hot cocoa. This startles Rain, since she's still not used to Kurt's looks and she calls him a demon. But Kurt assures her that he is as much a human as they are. Storm says they could really use Wolverine right now with his tracking abilities, and Rain asks if maybe she can help in wolf form. Storm tells her that she might, but Wolverine's expertise might point him in directions that she might miss. Roberto asks Xavier why he was summoned, and he tells him that there's someone here to meet him. It's his mother, Nina. They haven't seen each other for a while, and Roberto wasn't even aware of his mother knowing he's a mutant, but apparently his father had told her. She has not always been there for Roberto, due to her work and passion of being an archaeologist. She'll be going on another expedition soon, and she invited the New Mutants to come join her. Professor Xavier thinks this is a good idea, but Roberto asks him what about trying to find Sean. Xavier says it's a job that's better suited for the X-Men team, but Roberto does not like deserting Sean like that. He's getting angry with Xavier because he blames Xavier for Sean's disappearance, since he was preoccupied with overseeing Team America's part in the whole Viper incident. Roberto walks off angry, telling Xavier that maybe it's time for him to quit the team. Nightcrawler and Colossus ask Charles if this was necessary, and Charles explains that ever since they arrived here, he sensed a powerful entity with evil intent. He also says that he's convinced that Sean is still alive because he would have felt it if she had died. He's fearful of the unknown entity to attack again, and if it does, he wants the New Mutants team to be as far away as possible. And if he had told Roberto about this, or the whole team for that matter, they would have wanted to stay and do whatever they can to save Sean. All in all, Xavier would much rather have the New Mutants think him a heartless man and stay alive, than lose them in a dangerous situation. Somewhat close by, Roberto releases his anger and frustration of losing two good-hearted young girls, his girlfriend Juliana and their team leader Sean, and not being able to save them, regardless of all the power his mutant abilities give him. Sam approaches him and tells him how powerless he felt when his father died, and how that changed everything in his life. He tells him about the plans they had for the future, and how losing his father forced him to become the man in their household. Roberto is losing his patience and tells Sam to get to the point. Sam tells him that sometimes life simply throws curveballs at you, and all you can do is cope as best as you can and keep on living. Roberto asks him if he means that they should just blindly follow Xavier's orders then, and Danielle chimes in telling him that no, they shouldn't just blindly follow his orders, but in this case, Xavier is right. She tells him that if they stay, Xavier and the X-Men will have to be worrying about them as well, and won't be able to give their full attention to trying to find Sean. Roberto says that he misses Sean, and Danny says that they all do. 1 week later, the team arrives at one of the largest mansions in Rio de Janeiro. It's owned by Roberto's father, who grew up here as a houseboy, and he swore that he would someday own this palace, which was built by a prince about a century ago. He was able to get it done while his mother was still alive, and make sure that she became the mistress of the estate where she was once a maid. The butler welcomes Roberto's mother and them both, but acts kind of snobbish to the rest of the guests. Danny can't help but react sarcastically. The dinner table is set, and Roberto's father, Emmanuel, had heard about one of his guests having been to Rio before and asked about it. Danny says that she's been here before, along with a friend, and Emmanuel asks her why the friend is currently not with them. Roberto's mother Nina tells him that is the girl who is currently lost. He apologizes and sneeringly asks Nina where she will be going this time around. And Roberto is starting to feel embarrassed because they are just as hostile to one another as he remembered. Nina tells Emmanuel that he already knows where she is going, because he is sending geologists to the same area. Emmanuel says that he will send anyone anywhere as long as there is a profit to be made. Nina asks if it's really necessary to gain more profits, and Emmanuel asks her if she would rather have been living like his parents had, poor. Something which she had never had to experience, and he asks if she would have wanted that for herself and her son. She tells him that she would rather be happy, to which he responds, he is happy. The situation escalates, with Roberto's mother and father getting more snappy to one another, which is becoming very awkward for Roberto and his friends. Nina tells her husband that this thing he calls progress is actually madness, namely trying to claim and own a part of the rainforest, destroying it bit by bit, while endangering the whole ecosystem, destroying the future by trying to rule the present. Roberta's father tells his wife he knew she was an idealist, but never realized before how much of a fool she is. He leaves and tells everyone goodnight. The day after, Nina and the team tour the city. Apart from Roberto and his mother, everyone is experiencing Carnival for the first time. Sam is amazed at the amount of pretty girls in scarce clothing as he gets kissed by one of them. Danielle taunts him while he blushes, and Rain says that he should be ashamed of himself. Danny says that maybe they should find themselves some carnival costumes and join in on the party, which catches Rain even more off guard. Danny asks Roberto about the situation last night between his mother and father and asks him if everything is alright, but Roberto seems not happy with the situation at all. They walk up to a carnival costume shop and Nina tells them that they will be wearing whatever they get in there to the governor's ball tomorrow. They enter the shop as they are being watched by people that plan to ambush them. The team tries out some costumes as the clerk tells Nina that she's wanted outside by a chauffeur. Nina thinks that Emmanuel sent the chauffeur and tells the kids to get the clothes back on and meet her outside. But as she walks outside, she gets abducted. Sam notices this and blasts outside using his powers, because he recognized the goons wearing Hellfire Club uniforms. As he's about to chase the car, knowing that he can catch up to it, he gets hit in the face by an axe, slamming him into a nearby building which collapses on top of him. The rest of the team run out, not sure whether they should go after the car or help Sam out. Someone tells them they should probably mind their own business, and as they turn around, they see a towering figure who calls himself Axe. Roberto doesn't like being threatened, powers up and attacks him, but Axe punches him with one powerful strike. Danielle tries to help out by summoning his deepest fear, but Axe seems to have none, and he deals with her as easily as he did with Roberto, as he mockingly tells Rain that running off is probably the smartest move. Axe runs off himself, steps into a car and drives off. Sam emerges out of the rubble and figures it's no real use chasing this guy and winding up in more troubles, so he heads for his friends instead. He wonders what the Hellfire Club would want with Roberto's mother and if they're trying to get back at them through her. He asks Danielle and Roberto where Rain is, as Roberto tells the shop clerk to call the police, but she's more concerned with the shop, which is wrecked. Roberto tells her that his father will take care of everything. Danielle gets into contact with Rain through their psychic rapport, and Rain informed her that after she ran away from Axe, she changed into wolf form and is now hot on their trail. In the evening, they have all gathered at the hideout of the Hellfire Club's troops, thanks to Rain's directions. Sam wants to rush in, but Roberto tells him the goons are cold-blooded killers, and he wants to avoid another crossfire in which one of his loved ones might get killed, just like Juliana had been. Danielle contacts Rain as she's spying on them. She finds out that Nina is in no danger, because they're waiting for their employer to arrive in the morning, unless they get attacked of course. Something which Sam says triggers an idea in Roberto's mind. The alliance of the Hellfire Club soldiers and the mutant Axe is pretty tense, as they hear some howling outside, which rattles the soldiers. Axe makes fun of them for being wimps, calls them clowns, and says that he was told he would be working with men instead. Axe's attitude is getting on the soldiers' nerves. They've heard the place they're hiding out in is haunted, and Axe says that he doesn't care. He tells one of the guys to search the place then, if he has the guts. He does, being annoyed with the presence of and the mockery of the mutant Axe, but instantly regrets it, as the place is pitch dark and he thinks to himself that he should have asked one of the other guys to come along with him. He hears a voice, turns around and sees an apparition of 3 girls, who tell him there's nothing to be afraid of and that they're just looking for a good time. They lure him in, and as he gets close, their visages change into something demonic looking and the soldier falls back down the stairs. Of course these apparitions appear due to Psyche's mutant abilities, but pulling both desires and fears out of the soldier's mind took a lot out of her. Wolfsbane and her get discovered by the other soldiers, whose nerves are on the edge already, and they fire the guns at them as a reaction to one of their own seemingly having been attacked. Danielle pushes herself to the limit even more by using her powers on the rest of the soldiers as well. Danielle knows that this has to be done, but the images she's pulling out of their minds are so lifelike that the terrors which they are experiencing shows even through their masks. Wolfsbane jumps down, changing back and forth into a wolf form and attacks the men, as Psyche runs down and punches one of them in the face. Rain is surprised at the power she possesses in half wolf form, and Danielle is happy with the result they got in doing their part of the plan. The rest is now up to the guys. Sunspot smashes through the wall of the room X is holding his mother in, and X threatens Sunspot to stop right there or he will gut his mother. Sunspot tells him that his threats do not impress him, as he smashes the wooden floors, which catch X off guard and he loses his balance. Cannonball enters and he asks Roberto if he's sure about this. Roberto tells him that this is between X and him and that Sam should just do his part. Cannonball thinks to himself he hopes he's making the right decision in leaving Roberto behind, as he picks up Nina and flies her out of there. Sunspot tells X to get back on his feet and X tells him he's going to make him pay. They end up in a fight and Sunspot tells X that he caught him by surprise the first time around and he won't be so lucky this time around. Sunspot then beats him up and knocks him out cold. During the next couple of days, the preparations for the trip to the Amazon has been delayed by the police investigations of Nina's abduction. Roberto's worried about his mother and thinks she's still in danger. His teammates try to comfort him as much as they can. A car is standing close by and inside it are Emmanuel and Sebastian Shaw of the Hellfire Club. They are discussing the failure of Shaw's apparatus and how that fact is not tempting Emmanuel to join the Hellfire Club at all. Sebastian Shaw tells Emmanuel that him not wanting Nina to get hurt created problems, next to X not being able to deal with the new mutants, which Shaw had hoped he would have been able to. Sebastian tells Emmanuel that the Hellfire Club is still willing to offer assistance. Emmanuel tells him in return that that won't be necessary. Alternative plans have already been made and Nina will not reach the Amazon. And Shaw then asks him if he would even be willing to risk the death of his wife and son to achieve his goals. Issue number 8. In the jungle of South America, known to mankind as the Amazon, there is a vast complex ecological system of plants and animals. One of the animals that should not be here is a wolf. But this is no ordinary wolf. It's Rain Sinclair in a mutant form, and she's on the prowl. Moving around carefully and quietly, she's aware of everything around her. She's hunting for Danielle Moonstar, her fellow student. They're playing a game of hide and seek, and Danny is about to lose. Rain climbs up a tree in her transitional form to stalk Danielle from high above the ground, before she jumps behind her, startling Danny, scaring her even. Danielle gets grumpy and slightly angry with Rain, because she could have accidentally triggered her mutant powers on her. Rain tells her to stop yelling and that this was just a game, as she nearly faints. Danny catches her and notices she's all sweaty, and figures it's because of the climate, along with Rain still wearing her full uniform. She tells Rain that she will have to take it off, but Rain doesn't want to do that, because she thinks it to be improper in front of the boys. Speaking of the boys, Roberto and Sam are pretty close by. Surprised that Rain hadn't found them by now, with her tracking abilities, they figure she must have gotten lost in the jungle, just like they will, if they're not careful, according to Sam. But Roberto tells him that if they just follow what his mother had told them, they should be just fine. She had been roaming the jungles for a long time after all. They hear barking sounds in the distance and figure it must be Rain. When they find her, they see Rain bathing herself in a wolf form in a snowstorm, in the middle of the jungle, which doesn't make sense. It's due to Danny, who pulled Rain's wish to cool off straight out of her mind, and with the practicing she's been doing in the past couple of months, she's able to manifest her heart's desire into lifelike three-dimensional images. Roberto asks if it's real, but Danielle says it is to Rain, and that's what matters. Sam figures his training session is over and he tells the others he will give himself a workout by using the obstacles around them to hone his maneuverability. When he first manifested his abilities, he could only fly in straight lines. But with the help of exercises in the danger room and in real life, he's gotten a lot more control over his trajectory. This is an amazing feeling to him and he gets a bit carried away. Danielle warns him as he doesn't watch where he's going and smashes into a tree. Roberto deals with the huge tree falling in their direction with his solar fuel powers. He hits the tree and smashes it to bits. A bit later, as Roberto is setting up the team's communication link with Professor Xavier, he tells Rain that the jungle she's amazed by won't be around for much longer if humans keep destroying it as they have been, including Sam. Danny says that Sam didn't do this on purpose, but Roberto says that it doesn't matter. The end result is the same. Apparently the team had been sending the results of their training sessions in the jungle during the past couple of days to the professor. Today's session will be evaluated in time for tomorrow's call, and the professor tells them that he's very impressed with their progress thus far. Roberto asks him if there's been any word on Sean, but Xavier says there hasn't. He tells them that he thinks they must face and accept the reality that Sean is really gone. Roberto asks if they should be coming home, but Xavier tells him they're better off where they are. At the moment he's quite caught up with the new arrivals amongst the X-Men and Training Team America still. They should just make the most of their holiday. After the communication, the kids discuss noticing Professor not telling them all about Sean's apparent death. Roberto thinks he just doesn't care, but Danny tells him that even though she once would have thought the same, she thinks he's now trying to protect them from something. Sam asks her for what, and if he is, it sure doesn't feel right for Xavier to not trust him with it. Roberto tells Sam that it's because they're too young, kids still. Nobody takes the ex-baby serious. When they reach the riverbank, they see the boat arriving in the distance, and Roberto figures it will be about half an hour before they should be boarding. Danny takes off her clothes and tells the guys that they can wait all they want, but she's gonna swim to the boat, with Sam and Roberto asking if she's crazy. Aboard the boat, one of the crewmen sees Danny approaching as he dumps a bucket of trash in the water. He figures Danielle must have forgotten Roberto's mother's warning of entering the waters. Danielle notices the waters around the boat are stirring up, like it's boiling, and then it hits her. There are piranhas in this river, flesh-eating fish that could eat her alive in the blink of an eye, and there's many of them. There's little she can do. She won't be able to get back to the shore quick enough, so in a desperate attempt, she hopes there's something they fear and she uses her powers on them. And to her surprise, it works. She yells out to Sam to come rescue her, but aboard the ship, Nina's gathered the rest of the crew and they will see Sam use his powers. Something he can't worry about, he tells Roberto. Danny is in too much trouble. He blasts off, plucks Danielle out of the water, almost yanking her arm out of a socket. They pass the boat, over the heads of Nina and the crew on the boat, and they crash land on the beach on the other side of the river. Only to be confronted by Amazonians right there. Sam immediately gets kicked in the face, grabs one by the ankle while lying flat on his belly. Both him and Danny end up fighting them, but the women seem to be not wanting to fight, as Danielle throws one of them on top of the others, after which they flee. She figures their attack must have been an automatic reaction to their appearance. She looks towards Sam and he is still holding on to one of them. She's struggling and saying stuff, but they can't figure out what she's saying. They had apparently been watching the boat from the shore, and Danielle wonders for how long and why. They're making their way towards the boat, and Danielle tells Sam to be on his guard, because she feels their trouble has only just begun. Aboard the boat there's some mutiny going on. One of the crewmen, called Silvera, doesn't want to be working on the boat with one of the passengers being a freak, a monster even, and the other kids might possibly be the same. The guy emptying the bucket of gunk earlier sticks up for the kids and calms the situation down before it gets out of hand. The ship's captain thanks Castro and says he wants to leave here and not be here when the Amazons return. After the sun has gone down and the ship is anchored for the night, the team and Nina try to interrogate the prisoner, but she's not saying a word. Nina, as an archaeologist, inspects the arrow and knife they found, and they are of varying origin. One from a local tribe, one from Peru, which is located miles away, and one made from steel of a more modern design. Sophisticated workmanship of a level of technology uncommon to any of the Amazon tribes. Outside, the other Amazonians are on the prowl, having their sights on the boat. One of them tells the others to lower their bows, because she wants to wait for the prisoner, Lady Amara, to find a way to signal them, rather than risk her life, and once she does so, they will strike. Back in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, at the mention of Emmanuel da Costa, Sunspot's father, Emmanuel is in the company of Sebastian Shaw still. Apparently the man aboard the ship, Castro, is one of Shaw's agents, trying to sabotage the New Mutants and Nina's exploration of the Amazon. Once again, Emmanuel is not impressed with the successfulness of the Hellfire Club's efforts in stopping Nina and the kids, and Sebastian says it's a difficult assignment to do so, without harming them, especially with the kids being mutants. Emmanuel then asks Shaw if he has any idea what's at stake. What kind of treasures lie hidden in the unexplored and uncharted territory? He tells Shaw he won't allow anyone to keep him from it. Shaw says that's good to hear and asks Emmanuel what about Nina, to which he responds that his feelings have nothing to do with business, and that she should have just stayed at home and should have behaved as a proper wife. A handful later step in the room and Shaw asks what the meaning of this is, and Emmanuel tells him they are here for entertainment. The boat arrives at the Madeira and it's a beautiful sight. Legend has it that there's a lost civilization hidden in those mountains, with a city of gold and ruled by gods from the other side of the world. Several unsuccessful expeditions have been trying to reach it, but many have never returned. This worries the team a bit, but the captain tells them not to worry since they are only stories. Rain makes her way below the deck and passes the cabin where the girl they captured is being held. She hears voices and walks inside, where she finds Castro slapping the prisoner in the face. Rain asks what he's doing and he tells her he's trying to get information out of this woman, with violence if necessary. Rain tells him to stop and approaches him, but he hits her with a clenched fist as well. Rain tells him he should not have done that, as she changes into a wolf and scares him away. Rain releases the prisoner and tries to start a communication with her. Regardless of the language differences, they are able to tell each other their names, as suddenly Rain is overcome by sad feelings. She starts crying because Castro's face and reaction to her transformation reminded her of how people reacted to her back in Scotland. People she had known for her entire life still thought her to be a monster once her mutant power started manifesting. She wonders if she's truly evil deep inside, just like people tend to see her. She says that the only time she's truly happy is in wolf form. Everything just becomes transparently clear to her that way, and she wonders if it's the best for her to stay that way forever. She asks if Amara had understood the words she said, and she's happy she didn't. She makes her way back up and plans on telling Nina all about Castro's transgressions, but when she gets upstairs on the deck, she finds the captain lying on the floor, dead, with an arrow sticking out from his back. Someone behind her says that she'll be joining him soon, and as she turns around, she gets struck with the blunt end of a rifle by Castro. She gets knocked out, and when she wakes up again, she finds herself in the cabin with the other team members, Nina and Amara. Roberto's waking up as well and tells her that they got them all by putting drugs in their food. He wonders why he didn't finish them off for good. He powers up his sunspot and smashes the door. He figures this was just another attempt to stop his mother's expedition, just like the attack on her in the city of Rio. The boat seems to be adrift and the current is pulling them into the dangerous waters the captain had warned them about earlier. He tries to get control of the boat by grabbing the steering wheel, but finds out that the engines have been destroyed by the crew who seem to have disappeared themselves. Roberto tells Rain to wake the rest of them up, fast, as the boat is making its way to a waterfall. When it plummets down, it crashes on a rock in the middle of the stream and gets wrecked to bits and pieces. The ice-cold water wakes up Sam and he reacts instantly. Using his powers as cannonball and he pulls Danielle out of the water. Roberto's trying to save his mother using his powers as well, confident that his mutant ability will keep them both safe. But a piece of wood smashes him in the back of his head, making it clear that there's a distinct difference between immense strength and invulnerability. He can't reach his mother and gets pulled down by the undertow. And if it wasn't for Sam, he would have surely drowned. Sam doesn't see Roberto's mother as he pulls Roberto out from deep underwater. He'll come back and search for her some more once he's dropped Roberto safely on the shore with Danielle. Rain is able to safely jump from one rock to another by using her wolf and half-wolf form, right to where she can reach the prisoner Amara. She grabs her by the arm, but the current is so strong it almost pulls her off the rock she's holding onto. She's able to hold herself steady, but it keeps pulling Amara under. Suddenly, Rain notices Amara's skin and hair having changed. Apparently she was a white girl with blonde hair all along, disguising herself as one of the natives of the region. Rain's desperately telling Amara to do something and to try and save herself. To grab a rock or kick with her legs, to try and swim, something, anything. If only Amara could understand her. But Amara then responds in English, at which point Rain realizes she could understand her all along, including when Rain poured out her heart, telling her things she wouldn't dare telling even her best friends. She feels like her trust has been betrayed by the stranger, but yet cannot let her drown. She changes into half-wolf form and gathers up strength to pull her up on the rock. Rain now has a lot of questions for the girl, and knowing what she knows now, there's no way she gets away easily playing dumb, not knowing how to speak or understand English. Sam approaches Rain, asking her if she has seen Nina and who the girl is. Rain tells him it's the supposed native he captured, which confuses Sam, but she also tells him that she has not seen Nina. When the three of them arrive on the shore without Nina, Roberto loses it. Sam grabs a hold of him, telling Roberto they will do what they can to find his mother, but they're lucky to even be alive to begin with right now. At that moment, they're being told to stand still. They can't believe their eyes when they see the people who are threatening them are clothed in armor worn by Roman legionaries, and that they are now prisoners and slaves to Imperial Rome. Issue number 9. The New Mutants have been taken prisoner by the legionaries of Nova Roma, an ancient city hidden deep within the Amazon. Surrounded by mountains and low-hanging clouds, this place has not been discovered for years, and the only way to access it is through the tunnels they just traveled to. And with an army of legionaries, no expedition has ever returned alive to be able to tell the story. Astounded by the sight, the team discusses their current situation. Danny thinks it's wise to play along, and maybe they can get help once they arrive in the city of Nova Roma. They will remain being captives and might get some help finding Roberto's mother, as well as finding out more about their own captive, Lady Amara, a girl about their age who seems to carry secrets with her. Having disguised as one of the natives earlier, her cover got blown away by ending up in the water, from which she was rescued by Rainey in the end. She can speak English but is currently passed out. Or so it seems. For some reason, she is asking Sam to keep pretending she's one of theirs. When they arrive in the city, they get thrown in a holding cell. Roberto makes a sarcastic comment about not getting any help at all to Danny, and Danny tells Rain to check the door. Rain transforms herself into her half wolf form, and she cannot hear or smell anyone close by. What she can smell is the nasty stench in the cell. Roberto tells her it's supposed to be disgusting in a dungeon like this. He then orders Amara to give them some explanations. She introduces herself as Amara Juliana Olivia Acquia, and her father, Lucius, is the first senator of Nova Roma. She says that she is sincerely sorry about the loss of Roberto's mother, and she prays that she's still alive, or that her death was a quick one without any pain. Roberto asks Amara if his mother could be in the city, but Amara tells him that if she were, she would be right here. Roberto is getting angry and more annoyed by the second, and wants no sympathy from his teammates. Danny wants to know more and asks Amara why she behaved the way she did. Amara explains more about the origins of the city and the people here. Amara also tells them that she is part of an underground opposition to the current ruling class. If she gets found out, it would ruin her father's political career, as well as the Republican cause. Roberto asks her why they were so interested in his mother's expedition, and Amara tells him that Sam was right in thinking that they are very wary of intruders, strangers from outside. Their city has been able to survive for as long as it has, mainly because of its location. Roberto and Rain don't trust her, but Sam is more gullible and wants to know why they don't trust her. Rain tells him she sure hasn't told them the whole truth. She can just sense that Amara is holding back information. Danielle wishes that Xavier was here, or that she was a telepath just like him. And with the thought, she accidentally triggers her mutant powers and syncs up with Amara's mind, pulling her worst fear from her mind. It's an image of Amara being thrown in a fiery pit of some kind, by a woman. Amara calls her the Black Priestess, and she's totally overcome by fear. Sam's getting restless and wants to break free. Danielle and Roberto manage to stop him, as Roberto tells him that Sam's powers are too unfocused. Roberto will power up and deal with the door blocking their freedom. Amara tries to stop him, but she's too late. Roberto smashes the door to pieces, which triggers a booby trap. Darts get automatically shot at them, and they are tipped with a certain kind of organic poison, which paralyzes them all, instantaneously, and renders them all unconscious. Meanwhile, somewhere in the city of Nova Roma, in the senatorial baths, Amada's father Lucius would like to have a word with Marcus Domitius, who would rather not spend time on Lucius. He has more important business to tend to. Lucius asks if this business has something to do with the captured Outlanders. Lucius' spies, or patriotic citizens as he prefers to call them, have informed him well of their capture. Regardless of the prisoners' ages, Marcus tells him, the law is quite specific. Male Outlanders will go to the arena for entertainment, and if they survive the experience, they will join the girls on the auction block to be sold into slavery. The rivalry between the two men is obvious, regardless of their superficial consciousness. Lucius is the one thing that stands between Marcus's ambitions. Marcus returns to his lair, swearing his revenge on Lucius for hindering his plans, as he orders his servant to bring him wine. His wife, Celine, asks him if he had a bad day, and Marcus tells her what's going on. How his army had captured some children children possessing extraordinary powers. Powers which would make him invincible if he would get them to serve him. But Lucius is making him uphold the law and deliver them to the arena. Celine tells Marcus that she has heard him curse Lucius and wish for him to be dead many times before. She tells him she could accomplish that for him. He tells her no. Marcus wants Lucius to fall by his own hand, and rather not resort to Celine's black arts. Celine assures him that the day will come when her black arts may be his only hope for victory and salvation. She takes him all the way down to the catacombs below their villa. She then shows him that she has a prisoner hidden down there, since she is looking for a way, other than the magic arts, to dispose of her husband's enemies. She uses her magic to reveal a door hidden in the wall. Seeing this display of powers, Marcus can't help but shiver out of the fear he has for the powers possessed by this woman he loves. Inside the cell is Castro. Celine tells Castro to tell her husband what he had told her. Castro tells him that he serves a great lord who wishes to exploit the natural resources of this land. He then offers Marcus an alliance, granting Marcus weapons, guns, whatever assistance he requires, all to be traded for mining rights. Marcus is intrigued and tells Celine to get the man upstairs and provide him for all he needs. But first and foremost a bath, because he reeks. After that, they will talk. In the meantime, in the House of Women, Rain and Danielle are being treated well and taken care of properly, so they will look their finest and will bring the best possible price at the slave auction. Rain tells Danielle that she envies her hair and explains how her hair never grows beyond the point that it is now, only when it's cut short, and then grows again up to this current length. Danielle tells Rain that long hair isn't all that, because washing and combing it is quite the hassle, let alone when it becomes all tangled up. Rain asks if she couldn't cut it then, and Danielle jokingly says no, because that would make her look like her. Rain then playfully splashes water from her bath to Danielle. They get served more drinks and the girls are liking it, because it tastes great. Amara tells them to take it easy with the drinks, because this is not normal wine, it's drugged. But it's too late, as it's beginning to have its effect on the two of them. They are deliberately being drugged because their captors want them cheering alongside the crowd at the arena tomorrow, as their companions will fight one another to the death. Amara overhears this conversation and will have to sneak in during the night to rescue Danielle and Rain. During the night, Amara makes her move. She thinks back to how her father had told her to stay away from the city years ago, to save her from the Black Priestess and her unholy fire cult. She was to stay away until her father could discover the true identity and crush her evil forever. He would be shocked to find her in the city right now. She figures she should have told the New Mutants since they sensed she was hiding something anyway, resulting in them not trusting her now. She's scared as she makes her way towards Rain and Danielle, as she wonders how awesome it must be to be as brave and fearless as they are. She tries to wake up Rain, but she tells her to go away. Amara tells her they must escape tonight, because the life they will have once they're sold off as slaves is going to be a miserable one, especially if their master will find them attractive. Sadly, they are too drugged out. They drank a lot and a small dose should already be effective. Amara wonders why the drugs didn't have an effect on her, as she makes her way out of there. She won't be able to carry the both of them out of there anyways. Suddenly she grows very weak, getting dizzy. She can hardly stand. She's feeling hot inside, like there's a fire burning inside of her. And it hurts. A lot. Making her wanting to scream. Or to die even. Anything to just make the hurting stop. But she can't do a thing but endure the pain until it stops. It's not the first time she's had an attack like this. But they are becoming heavier and occur more and more often than before. She wonders if she's gotten a disease or if she's been cursed. She's about to get up and make her way out of there, as she's being spotted by someone. Someone who is pleased by her side. It's Celine, and Amara recognizes her instantly, as she does her, even though it's been years. Celine tells Amara that she's glad to finally see her again, happy that their paths have crossed again. A blessing from the gods that she will make very good use of. In the dungeon, where Sunspot and Cannibal are being held captive, two of the gladiators are practicing their skills. While Sam and Roberto are trying to find the way to free themselves from the shackles, but being drugged, Roberto isn't able to access his immense strength. One of the gladiators explains to them what happens in the arena and what will happen after the fight, depending on the outcome. Sam says it won't really be a fair fight with them being drugged. He gets told not to worry, because after the trainer is done with his work, they will be happy to take on an army. At noon, the entertainment starts. The show is preceded by the audience engaging in gossip, flirtations, arguments, and placing bets on gladiatorial contests and races. On who will live and who will die. All under the watchful eye of the ceremonial master of the games. Senator Marcus Domitius Gallio and his wife Celine, accompanied by a drugged-out Rain and Danielle, dressed up beautifully, looking like princesses without a care in the world. In the dungeon, Sam and Roberto are being prepared to enter the arena, getting force-fed wine laced with drugs. The drugs will make them be consumed by a berserker fury, which will give them the strength, a resistance to pain, and the endurance of a madman. They won't stop at anything unless they have killed or will be killed themselves. Sam is less under the influence of the drugs than Roberto is and tells him to control himself. They are not killers. But Roberto tells Sam to speak for himself. A little bit later, in the arena, the drugs and rage give Roberto the energy to summon his powers, and he deals with the two gladiators instantly. One single blow is all it takes, to the amazement of the audience. Sam feels like Roberto and him could wreck the place and thinks to himself they probably should, because the alternative is them becoming slaves. The drugs are getting to him as well, as he tries to resist. He sees Rain and Danielle cheering them on, just like the rest of the crowd. Sam figures he should give them what they want, as he's being approached by a horde of gladiators in vehicles and on horses. He activates his powers as cannonball and destroys vehicles, making the gladiators scramble to safety. But not all of them are able to do so, as one of them gets trampled by one of the horses. Sunspot tries a different but risky tactic, by lowering himself to the ground right between the horses pulling the chariot as they make their way towards him. He's strong, but not invulnerable. The audience watches in awe, as they see him disappear, only to emerge behind the chariot again, which he picks up and throws into another chariot. Cannonball wrecks another one of the vehicles, but accidentally slams into Sunspot. Marcus is safely watching things unfold, knowing that if Sam and Roberto were to turn against him, his archers will take them out instantly. Formidable as they are only human nonetheless. Sunspot and Cannonball start to turn against one another. The drugs inside their bodies cause them to attack one another, and Sunspot, getting hit by Cannonball on the back, is reminded of the first time they both met, calling Cannonball a coward for hitting him from behind once again. Sunspot swings and hits Cannonball as he's flying towards him, and the impact leaves both of them lying on the floor, physically shocked and drained. Sam's invulnerability took a full hit from Roberto, and it renders them both powerless. Roberto gets up faster and attacks Sam barehandedly. Normally they would have emptied their gas tank already, but the drugs give them more endurance than before. The former friends fight, and Rain cheers Roberto on to kill Sam. Sam is a lot bigger than Roberto, but Roberto is able to use his powers again, and grabs Sam by his throat. This fight is causing a panic within Rain, who feels she must save the boy she fancies, namely Roberto. She's being told to stay put, but nothing will stop Rain. She transforms and deals with the two legionaries, as well as restoring the mind link she has with Danielle when in wolf form. She jumps inside the arena, and Danielle wakes up from the influence of the drugs, realizing she was cheering the boys on to kill one another. She has to stop this. She has to find a way to shock them out of the drugged out state, just like she was by Rain's transformation. She tries to pluck a very specific image out of their minds, something she has not tried before. She creates an image of Professor Xavier, which snaps Sam and Roberto out of their berserker rage. The boys apologize to one another as the crowd turns on them, saying they are demons and spawn of the Black Priestess, calling for the archers to open fire. The archers await Marcus Domitius' order, but he tells them to stand down. Marcus tells everyone in the audience that an ancient prophecy has been fulfilled. Rain's hair marks her as a descendant of the divine patron Gaius Julius Caesar, and her transformation into a wolf reveals her to be of the same blood as a she-wolf who suckled Romulus and Remus, the founders of Mother Rome. They are the children of not man, but of gods, and he welcomes the children among them. The crowd is cheering at Marcus's words, and everything is going to be just fine. This issue being the final issue of this year. Issue number 10. The people of Nova Roma are cheering. They have found a new idol to worship in the form of Rain Sinclair, a Scottish girl with red hair who can transform herself into a wolf. Akin to Julius Caesar, a ruler of Mother Rome 2000 years ago, and a mythical she-wolf of ancient Roman times who suckled the two legendary founders Remus and Romulus of ancient Rome. Yesterday Rain and her friends were fighting for their lives in the gladiatorial arena and were nearly sold off as slaves, but today they are venerated as gods. Miles away from home in a surreal civilization, they long to be home. yet find themselves awkwardly at the center of attention. Accompanying them is Senator Marcus Domitius Gallio, who used Rain's seemingly sudden transformation to further his plans of domination over the region as an emperor. He manipulated the events which unfolded in the arena to gain the full support of the people, much to the chagrin of his biggest adversary, his fellow senator Lucius Antonius Aquila, who is reluctantly and grudgingly watching this unfold before his very eyes. Sam notices them looking at one another with hateful glances as he mentions it to Roberto, but Roberto tells him it's none of their concern. He worries about his mother, who got lost in the river when the boat they were on crashed, and he fears they are still in danger. Worries that he can't show his teammates. He feels that he needs to stay strong, but Danielle notices and wishes she could reach him, but Roberto is shutting down every form of sympathy from his friends. As they come back home to Marcus's lair, Rain can finally revert back to her human form, and Danny asks her if she liked the parade. But Rain doesn't feel it's proper to be idolized in this way. To her, it's blasphemous. But Marcus then says that maybe the gods of old were mutants themselves, people gifted with extraordinary powers and abilities. But they can talk and ponder about that at a later time. For now, it's time to feast. All kinds of food are being brought in by servants, and Sam asks if they are all slaves. Roberto tells Sam that his father was a slave when he was about his own age, and that living in beauty and luxury has its price, not always to be seen with the naked eye. Danielle worries about the boys not being careful enough, since they were pretty close to wearing chains themselves. They were now luckily saved by the senator, but he can change his mind at any given time. A little later, after the food has almost all been eaten, Danny thanks the senator for being so kind to them. He tells them they deserve no less, and Sam asks him about the man he saw during the parade, the man who didn't seem happy about the situation at all. Marcus can guess that was his colleague Senator Aquila, whose name Sam immediately recognizes as Amara's father, of course, so he asks Marcus if they don't get along. Marcus tells them all about their rivalry and their background, telling them that Lucius Antonius respects no law but his own and desires nothing but power, and that he will pay any price to achieve that, and make any sacrifices needed to attain the power, and that it's rumored that his ultimate goal is to name himself emperor. Sam doesn't buy Marcus' story, but follows Danielle's lead in staying polite and playing along, as to not ruin their current position. Sam tells Marcus that that's not what Amara had told them, that she told them her father was the leader of the Republican Party. Suddenly Rain lashes out, asking Sam why they should believe anything the girl has told them, that she's a liar and a sneak. Everyone is shocked at Rain losing her temper, and Danny wonders if there's more tension there than just something between the girls. Marcus tells her to come down and tells Amara is a good girl, loyal to her father. Yet she is not with them here right now, or was at the arena. She escaped, but left them to meet their fate at the arena. He tries to manipulate their opinion on Amara. Rain tells Marcus that unlike Amara, the New Mutants will stand by their friends, so if he needs any help while they are his guests, he has but to ask them. Marcus says he appreciates the gesture as he walks out and tells the kids goodnight as he goes to bed himself. Once Marcus has left, Roberto powers up a sunspot and breaks free from the armor which he was still wearing from the arena, shattering it. He drops down on the pillows and tells Danielle to wake him up in a week's time, preferably with a kiss. Sam asks Rain what she was thinking, offering Marcus their support without consulting with the rest first, telling her that they don't know anything about the political situation here and that her opinion on Amara is making her jump to conclusions. Rain then is telling Sam that he might be doing the exact opposite because he seems to fancy her, asking him who made him the leader. Sam tells her to listen to her elders, but Rain refuses to do so, especially when those elders act like babies. Roberto leaves the scene before he loses his temper and lets Danielle deal with this, since she has been taking charge a lot more recently. As he walks out, he thinks about Danny being a better leader than he would be anyways, since he doesn't have a lot of patience. His solution to an argument would be to punch someone. He walks past the servant slave who offers him her services, telling him she could take away his sadness. He wonders if his mental state really shows itself that much and thinks back to all the losses he's endured in the past couple of months. First losing his girlfriend Juliana, then his teammate Karma, and finally his mother. He starts crying when he thinks of all these women in his life whom he could not save regardless of his immense strength. He wishes his father was here, thinking about how they talk like friends instead of father and son whenever they were together. He looks outside and thinks he sees his mother, but he's not entirely sure. This woman does resemble her, even though she's dressed as a Roman. He wonders why no one had told him if she had actually been found. He runs downstairs and opens the door, but is being stopped by army men. That's when he finds out that Marcus gave the men the order to keep the kids inside the palace, supposedly for their own protection. Roberto powers up his sunspot, about to make sure he can pass, but he realizes using force against these men, who are just carrying out their orders, would be going against Professor Xavier's teachings. He doesn't see the woman who he thought was his mother anymore, realizing he probably won't find her in the crowd and that he most likely imagined it anyway. He apologizes to the men and powers down, as they count their blessings for not having to fight Roberto. Later that night, Danny is using her powers to distract two of the guards. She makes a run for it and figures she should be safe now. Being of Native American descent in a city that's half Inca, she should blend in with the rest of society pretty easily, but she gets grabbed from behind. After a while, Rain is worried about Danielle not having returned. Roberto checks up on her and she says that they should not have let her go out by herself. Roberto tells her that Danielle is a very determined girl and they probably wouldn't have been able to stop her anyway. He tells her to stop worrying about Danny because she can take care of herself. Rain tells him she's been thinking about her own transgressions, towards them but also to her faith, regardless of how Marcus tried to explain it away. Rain confides in him, telling him that she's wondering why God hasn't struck her down yet, to have her burn in hell forever, since her faith seems to not be as strong as it used to be. She tells him she likes being a wolf more than a girl, more and more each day. Roberto thinks to himself what he can say to comfort her, as he notices something behind the drapes. That's when he gets shot by a gun, in his shoulder, loses his balance and falls down the window. Luckily Sam notices this in time and powers up his cannonball, and just manages to catch him in time. He wants to hurry back up, because he's aware of Rain being alone in there with the killer. But she's already transformed herself into wolf form and is attacking the attacker. Guards, led by Marcus, rush the room, and Sam asks for a doctor, but Roberto says he's alright. Sam tells him he's bleeding, but Roberto doesn't care. The attacker is apparently Castro, the man who wrecked the boat and is the cause of them losing his mother. Senator Marcus tells the kids that the men will be held accountable according to Roman law, as he asks Castro who sent him. Castro spits him in the face and says he won't tell him anything. Marcus then calls his bluff, as he tells Castro he will let him discuss that with the willing Roberto. See how he likes that. Castro starts to stutter and he caves, telling them it was Senator Lucius Aquila who sent him. After which Marcus tells the Centurions to make their way to Lucius Aquila's home and to arrest him. Somewhere else, Danielle wakes up, all groggy from drugs, and her clothes have been changed into a different outfit. She finds herself in some kind of cave and it looks pretty big. She also finds Amara and some other girl in the same condition. As Amara is waking up, Danny asks her where they are and why they are here, but Amara tells her she doesn't know either. The girls are then taken to a different spot by some men, one of whom tells them they will be sacrificed. Danny knows she's still too weak to be using her powers, but also knows that if she isn't able to use them soon, it will all be too late. They get brought to a different spot in the cave, which is a fiery pit and people have gathered around it. One of the men tells them it's the sanctuary of the cult of fire, where they will be sacrificed to their gods by way of the eternal flame. Danny realizes the girls have become terrified, and so has she. She's somewhat surprised by this and figures it must be due to the drugs. She looks up at the platform and sees someone materializing there. It's the Black Priestess Celine, and she introduces herself, calling herself Daughter of the Moon and Mistress of the Fire. She gestures to one of the girls to present herself, and Danny notices a tug in her mind. She figures Celine must have some kind of psychic power, much like Professor Xavier. Danielle has built up some resistance through her training, but the other girls aren't as lucky. One of the girls is climbing the stairs in a trance-like state, reluctantly, but seemingly can't help herself. And Danielle is trying to use her powers, but it's not working on Celine. Celine tells the girl that she's doing her a supreme honor, as she pushes her into the pit and tells her that by dying she's giving Celine life. In the last couple of thousand years that Celine has been walking the face of the earth, thousands of people have been sacrificed and have been thrown into the fire in her name. She turns towards Danielle and Amara, and asks them which one of them will be next. In the meantime, at the Aquila estate, which is protected by guards, Sunspot and Cannonball smash through the walls. Sam thinks to himself how all this is very convenient for Senator Marcus, with Castro pointing out Lucius Aquila as the man who gave the order. Marcus was quick to send the army to arrest Lucius. Sam would have liked to be able to think things through, but Roberto just wants to smash things and find Danielle. Marcus is telling Rain to stay by his side just to be sure, because he doesn't want her to get harmed in any way. Sam then picks up Roberto and takes him away from the battlefield. The army doesn't need them to take out the guards, and Sam needs to have a word with Roberto without Marcus being able to hear them talk. Sam then tells Roberto that maybe Rain is right in saying Amara is getting to him, but they cannot allow Lucius Aquila, Amara's father, to accidentally get killed during his arrest. Roberto agrees with Sam in this. The army men barge to the door and attack Lucius, but he can fend for himself. Sunspot and Cannonball arrive just in time to make sure Lucius survives the attack. Marcus's plan is foiled since Lucius is taken in alive and they end up in an argument. Each one of the men accusing the other party of betrayal, lies and forgeries. Lucius accuses Marcus of selling out Nova Roma to outsiders only to further his ambitions, whereas Marcus accuses Lucius of high treason and having overwhelming evidence of him doing so. It will only be a matter of time before Lucius will be dead. Marcus thanks Sam, Roberto and Rain for their help in this matter, but what he doesn't realize is that Roberto speaks and understands Latin perfectly. Something which he had been keeping a secret since he figured it might become useful at a certain point. He had heard Marcus and Lucius' argument moments ago and he has to tell the others about this. Back in the cave of the Cult of Fire, Amara and Celine are standing on the altar. Celine tells her that from the moment she was born, she knew Amara's life was hers to take, just as she took her mother's life. How she knew that her father tried to hide her among the Amazons, but Amara's stubbornness brought her back into Celine's clutches. Danielle might not be able to use her powers on Celine herself, but she uses her power to deal with her henchmen, projecting an image pulled from the minds of the men of a demonic-looking Celine. Danielle runs up the stairs leading to the altar, wishing she could take out Celine at a longer range, surprising Celine as she was not expecting anyone to come up here. Danny gets up close, wanting to distract Celine with an image projection as well, to be able to push her into the lava pit, but she gets grabbed by the throat by Celine instead. She tells Danielle that she sensed her being different from the moment they met at the arena. Celine had always thought herself to be alone in being unique and different from the rest of humanity. Different and better. More powerful than baseline human beings. She now knows, after years and years, that she is not alone at all, thanks to Danielle and her friends. Danielle is surprised to find out that this monster of a woman is a mutant as well. Celine scratches Danielle's face and tastes her blood, telling her they will all serve her and they cannot refuse nor resist as she's going to leave her exile and reach out across the whole world now, as she starts to suck the life out of Danielle. Amara is able to break free from her hold on her and attack Celine by herself, but Celine easily slaps her away, disposing of her. Amara falls into the lava pit, submerging and disappearing. Suddenly, the ground starts to quake and the crust of the earth is tearing up all around Nova Roma. This is not the first time the citizens of Nova Roma experience an earthquake, but never before has it been as violent as this time. And inside Celine's cave, Amara emerges from out of the lava pit. She is reborn, with her latent mutant ability having been triggered. She has now become one with the molten heart of the earth itself, and as she starts to attack her, she swears vengeance on Celine in the name of her countless victims over the years. Thanks for watching this video and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, because that really helps me out in growing the channel and being able to produce more videos like this one. See you next episode.